Good morning. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Happy Juneteenth, Baltimore. I am Glenn Clark. He is Griffin Bass. And a pleasure to be joined in studio this morning by a man who is ubiquitous with baseball in Baltimore. He is an absolute legend. And I love the fact that he's part of our team here at Press Box. The great Jim Henneman is in studio with us, hanging out this morning. It's so good to see you, Jim Henneman. Thanks for coming in.
You keep using words like that, we're going to have trouble. No words I can't spell.
Well, hang on a second. If the rule was like that for me, I'm not sure we'd have any words. I appreciate you. It's good to see you, sir. Really, really glad that you're able to hang out this morning.
Happy to be here.
I got a lot of stuff I want to cover with you. Obviously, the Orioles avoided a sweep yesterday, but I noticed this morning Jim Palmer said that Dick Hall passed away.
I heard that last night. I had a text from a friend last night.
I was wondering to people, because I'm sure that when I say the name of Dick Hall, young Griffin over here, young Grant, they're like, I don't even know who that is. Could you tell everybody a little bit about Dick Hall?
Probably one of the more amazing athletes I've ever been around, really. I mean, I don't know anybody that ever got as much out of his talents and ability as Dick did. He actually was signed by the Pirates originally as a third baseman back in the 50s. A very bright guy. He went to Swarthmore, played a little bit there. Actually went to Mexico, played in Mexico for a while. And at one point, I think he had the Babe Ruth of Mexico.
Because he was he was
playing baseball. He was playing. He wasn't pitching.
Right.
His game evolved. I mean, he was his delivery was kind of like a sidearm dart player.
Okay.
if you can envision that, amazing control, and he had like a dart thrower's pinpoint control. Just an amazing guy. Had a long career. Very brilliant guy. He got famous early on in his career as a guy who could do all his stats in his head.
Really?
He didn't need he was way before the computer guy. He was the computer. And actually he was I think he was very instrumental. I think the Orioles may have been the first team, when you did World Series shares, you always saw full shares, half shares, quarter shares, this shares, and Dick was I'm almost positive he was instrumental in. He said, we just go by however many days you were here. That's how they did it. So if you were here for, 138 days, you got 138 slash whatever.
Wow.
And that's how. And I think I think mostly that's kind of an accepted
the standard.
today.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So, but anyhow, he. I don't really know how old Dick was. I was in his 90s, I'm pretty sure.
Dick Hall was 92 years old.
92. But an amazing career and an amazing gentleman. He was always great fun to be around. And I'm sure that Jim, Dick passed too late for Jim. Did not know about it during the broadcast.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would have mentioned it. But R.I.P. to a great friend and really kind of an iconic guy here. But you're right. To the generations of younger than.
Look, I'm not even going to pretend like I know a lot about Dick Hall. I'm not really trying to call these guys.
I mean, my kids and grandkids. Dick Hall doesn't mean, but to those of us who were around, during the heyday, really. I mean, he was on a lot of great teams. He was on really all the great teams.
Well, he was on both the 66 and 70 World Series teams, right?
Yeah.
And
then, so he was here through that early stretch, and it is in the club's Hall of Fame. He didn't have statistics that knock your eyes out, but if you go back and look at him, amazingly consistent and just a durable, reliable guy.
A remarkable life, obviously, of Dick Hall, and I appreciate you being here today to tell us a little bit more about him, or else I would have been sitting here feeling very stupid trying to talk about Dick Hall in a way that I am not capable of doing. Jim, I just for those that for whatever reason maybe don't know you, your life, your story, the first time you ever wrote anything, and I don't even know if it was definitely about baseball, but the first time you ever wrote about sports was when?
1958.
Phew.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, well, I actually was. I had just started at the paper as a copy boy. There was really not. I got sick my senior year in college, so I was out of school and planning on going back. To be honest with you, because I wanted to go back and play one more year of baseball, but things happened, and I was at John Stedman had hired me through a mutual friend as a copy boy. $1 an hour.
Hey, man, that's good work if you can get it.
39 hours a week. Hey.
Whew.
And the first, actually,
with inflation, that's like $6
oh,
an
yeah,
hour.
it probably was, not bad. The first story I ever actually wrote was about Al Kaline, who it was 58 was the year of the All-Star game, and I did a story about I played against Al for 3 years. So that was the first story I wrote, but actually the first one that actually got in print, which was a little bit before that, was the one that I subsequently wrote, and it was kind of an advice column for Little League parents and Little League parents from coaches and managers and directors of Little Leagues, and it was, as it turned out, it was kind of a favorite story of mine for a long time because it still holds true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of the same.
Do you remember any of the advice that was in the column?
Yeah. Be kind to umpires.
All right. That does still kind of held up.
Don't
to
be
this
screaming
day.
and hollering because your kid's not leading off and playing.
I wish you could have been at my my kids' lacrosse games this season. I got a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old now, Jim, and there were some parents there that I was ready to fight just because I was sick of hearing them get after these kids that were officiating the games.
Well, I didn't do a whole lot. I did a little bit of that when my kids were young, but we always used to say we wanted to have a, you have kids zones and so we like to have parent zones and grandparent zones and make sure they were at least 300 feet from home plate.
Yeah, right. Keep them far enough away.
But
it's a pretty good advice, though, I would say. Just be nice to the umpires who are not making a whole lot of money. These are not.
Yeah. I mean, one of the and and most people handle it the right way. It's just that when you see some situations. I mean, you read something. It seems like you read stories all the time about umpires or coaches, even being assaulted by.
Sure.
Verbally abused would be the new phrase. I don't think we used that phrase back in 58.
Yeah, but we know at this point this is absurd. It's absurd. 65 years you've been writing, and again, everybody associates you with baseball, but you've done far more things. I know your association with the Bullets. You've talked to me a lot about what those years meant.
I had those. I was with the Bullets the last 5 years. They were in Baltimore, and. Of course, those were in my way of the way I judge that is that they were the first 5 years of Wes Unseld's career, and I always tell people that
you made Wes Unseld.
That 5-year investment of my time was worth getting to know that guy. Forget the Rookie of the Year MVP. All-American, just a great human being.
If you did not read Jim's cover story a few years back about Wes Unseld and the Unseld School, I would encourage you to search for it right now because, again, given I was born in '83, Jim, so a lot of this is still history.
You were born after the school started.
That is a fact. That is a fact. And so a lot of this is a history lesson.
And actually,
for me.
Michael Oleska wrote the story about the school. I did a companion piece with
that's right.
With Wes, and it's funny how you get when one of the great regrets of my life. Two of my best friends, Wes Unseld and Vince Bagley, both passed away during that pandemic time when I was getting ready to have a hip replacement and not being able to be part of
celebrating.
Sure, of course there wasn't a whole lot really that was going on, but I had seen Wes in recent years, and and I have children in Westminster who ran into him a lot up there because that's where he was.
Mm-hmm.
He was. I mean, he was just he was a very special guy. So, but yeah, I had 5 years there, and it kind of interrupted. I kind of wonder. You never know what might have happened, but as I said, those 5 years that was a good investment of time.
So I wanted to, and it's you bring up Wes, and I think that he might show up on at least one of these lists. I wanted to kind of put you on the spot today.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's definitely going to be on the list you're going to ask.
All right,
yeah,
so I wanted to have you give me the top 5 athletes that you, in your 65 years, most amazed you. And I use that word loosely because I think it can cover part of what you're talking about.
It gives you a leeway.
100%.
So you can throw an Earl Monroe and a Gus Johnson in the middle of that mix, and it doesn't it fits right in.
Mm-hmm.
But around just enough of people like Unitas and Barry and Lenny and Art Donovan and those types. I did just enough football to be around. In those early years, we used to do a lot of first-person stories.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the ghostwriter was yours truly on a lot of that stuff.
Really?
So I had some Art Donovan bylines.
Yes, Art Donovan would write a story for the Sun, and it was
somebody young. These are News American days. These are back in the days when first-person stories were a big deal. So, I mean, I did, I did Hank Bauer during the '66 World Series. I mean, we had that 2 or 3, what we call them signer stories in those days. So, there was a lot of those kind of stories written, and I was around enough people like that, Brooks and Cow are on those lists in a lot of different ways. But I'll jump ahead of you a little bit because people always ask me who's the best player,
mm-hmm.
and that's hard. I mean I saw Mantle and I saw Mays at the end of his career, and from a very distant, I never really saw DiMaggio. I saw him, but only through the eyes of a young kid, once or twice maybe at Griffin Stadium. The best player, the way I get around that is the best player that I covered or that I was around throughout his career from beginning to end was Ken Griffey Jr.
Okay.
Now that's pretty good company.
I mean,
I'm not ashamed of that pick.
I think everyone my age would tell you he was their favorite baseball player to watch. Was just the joy. I talk a lot about the word joy and how much it does for me in sports, right? And what I like watching. And part of the reason why I fell in love with Adam Jones was because you would see the joy, how much he genuinely loved playing the game. And you're starting to see it with Cedric right now, right? Like you're starting to see someone who's letting a little bit looser. He's been more uptight, he's been a bit more guarded. You're starting to see more of it. And the way he plays, his style of playing is reflecting the joy that he has. He would tell you before he didn't like diving for balls, right? He hated doing that. Now all of a sudden he's doing it all the time.
It's interesting. Your perspective of that and mine are a little bit different.
Okay.
Only in this way is that I see all that in the way he plays the game.
Mm-hmm.
I swear he's a guy that I don't see anything different when I look at his facial expressions sometimes.
Right.
He's
very
stoic.
Yep. Yep.
And yet he comes out in subtle little ways, especially in some post-game stuff or something like that. But yeah, the way he plays the game, and to be honest with you, and what he has done, going forward, thinking that it's probably gonna, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't continue. But I've never seen anybody make the kind of transition that he's made, going from switch hitter to straight up. You've seen some try it the other way without much success. And I've never seen anybody.
Didn't he credit Buck for that? Didn't he say that it was Buck who encouraged him to do that?
I think that it was probably not. Organizationally, I think he had been encouraged to do it. But you have to understand, he had been switch hitting since he was in high school. So, and obviously, I guess he was. and obviously the right hand side was his weaker side, and if if he can get it in play, it's gonna work. But it's not so much that, but it's the power. Well, the power was already there, but the power that he's shown against left-handers, because it's kind of like that pitch on the that's a tough pitch on the inside to handle.
No question.
And the pitchers are not having a whole lot of luck in there.
No.
With it. So, So I'm incredibly amazed at that. And I talked to Hank Allen, who was scouting for the Dick's brother, and who scouted for a lot of years, and talked to him about. And he said he tried to switch. He says switch hitting is one of the toughest things you can imagine. And a lot of people will tell you that it is really something that's really tough to do. And Eddie Murray was a right-handed hitter. He was primarily a right-handed hitter, and so he had to go left.
Mm-hmm.
So to see guys have at that level, have the kind of careers that Eddie had. Kenny Singleton had a great career as a switch hitter. Dempsey tried it. Dempsey had some at bats left-handed. Because he was just trying to figure out a way.
I don't remember that.
Trying to figure out a way to actually the first game he played batting left-handed, he actually had an RBI, but it was on an infield grounder. But it was one of those plays where get the guy over, get the guy in type of thing. But he did. It didn't. Rick had trouble with the slider low and away, but. Who didn't? Yeah, really.
So Jim Henneman is in the studio with us today. You bring up Ken Griffey Jr., and it, of course, reminds me, I took my two kids to the game last Saturday, and they're at 8 and 6. They're now finally at the age where they're actually kind of interested in the baseball part of it. Like, they're not just there. We were there to get the Captain America bobblehead, but it was the first time. Like, they didn't want to go play on the playground; they wanted to watch the game. They now know the players. They want to see Adley Rutschman. They want to see Gunnar Henderson. And I took them out and I showed them all the baseballs on Utah Street, and I was showing them the Ken Griffey ball up on the warehouse.
Okay, yeah.
And it reminded me that you recently wrote about the home run that Gunnar Henderson hit, and a reminder of one of the most famous home runs in Orioles history, which, of course, was the time that Frank Robinson hit the ball cleanly out of Memorial Stadium.
Glenn, what you see, I tell you what's fun about being this old is that it seems like every year there's something that there's a 5 or 10 year or 20 year or 25 year anniversary of something that happened.
Yep.
I went through it or something significant that happened. Like in that particular thing you're talking about, I was sitting there, and I was sitting next to Jacob Calvin Meyer,
from the Sun
papers, and we were sitting there, and watching things that this kid had done, and we're kind of a little bit almost. And when he hit that ball, I looked at Jacob, he looked at me, and we didn't say a word. It was just like
you just saw
just
something.
Like this.
Yeah, you just as the day went on, and I started to think about it, I thought, why not? Why not? Now, the fact that it is the longest home run ever on
supposedly.
Utah. Yes,
but we know that for whatever reason there's at least one out there that's closer to the wall than his is. So so maybe we got to do some. I don't know how that, but see that goes back to estimations and all that kind of stuff, and what made it even better was on Frank's home run. I was one of the leader in the clubhouse in the office the next day saying, "There's no way that ball didn't go more than 451 feet. No, it's impossible. It's 450 feet to dead center field.
Correct.
This ball cleared the fence, cleared the back
that's got to
of the
be
wall. Got to be over at 4. So, if you went through the story, instead we go and bring surveyors in, and we spend 2 or 3 hours out there the next afternoon. And they come up with 453 and 6 inches. so we spent all this time for 30 inches to try to prove that the ball went more than 451 feet. So balls are going to be hit farther in center field because that's just the nature of the swing.
Sure.
And stuff like that. And it's harder to keep the ball fair down the line. But I will say this: the more what people, and part of the reason for the discrepancy in the distance is these things now are projected as to where this ball would have traveled with the trajectory. Now, Tomey's home run, for instance, could have been coming straight down and dropping right there, whereas this home run is projected to go. And what we forget is that the field is 16 feet below sea level.
Correct.
Not sea level,
Correct.
but street level.
Street level, yes.
So you project. So these distances are projections of how far the ball would have traveled if unimpeded.
Had not if the stadium had not gotten in the way, right?
You know, so the more I think about it, and with the dimensions and the angles and all the thing, I honestly, I don't think that the warehouse is ever going to get hit.
Wow, that was where we were headed.
Yeah.
You don't think so? I feel like when the stadium opened, it was such an exciting, enticing part of, hey, we're going to see this.
Right.
And then after about 10 years, we kind of realized, like, well, if it hasn't happened yet, it's probably never going to happen. Of course, we know that Ken Griffey hit it during the home run derby, but that's a little bit of a different thing.
Well, and plus, I don't know about in '93, but we know that they used juice balls in a home run derby anyhow. So
100%.
Now, whether they did it, but
and they might have been using cork bats.
Here's
for
the
all
other
I
thing
know.
too.
Yeah.
That was the same home run derby, same year of the home run derby, that they had a celebrity home run derby hitting contest, and there was only one ball hit out of the ballpark, and that was hit by Selleck.
Oh, really?
And the guy who got credit for hitting the longest ball was Michael Jordan, whose ball landed in center field.
Oh, okay. It just didn't go out of the ballpark.
I'm like, wait a minute. It's a home run hitting contest. There's one ball goes over the fence. Excuse me.
Was that around the time that Selleck did the baseball movie? Was that around the time he did? Was that Mr. Baseball?
I don't know, but it was around the time that he was taking BP at a lot of different ballparks.
So he was really
he was a Detroit guy. He was a big Tiger fan.
Yeah.
And he was, but yeah, he hit a ball over the scoreboard in right field and didn't win the contest. You know, which because it wasn't quote unquote the longest ball that was hit, but that's not what a home run.
The idea is to hit a home run. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
You know,
but you're convinced that it's even after seeing Gunners.
Well, first of all, they say that right down the line, it's like only 430 something, which. But that's keeping the ball dead inside the foul line. But for every 5 or 10 feet you go to the left, that warehouse, the angle. I mean, even though the angle of the warehouse is not changing, the warehouse is as straight as an arrow. But but the angle coming off the bat and the way it is, yeah, I think it's going to take. And again, projecting that it's 16. You know, the base of that thing is 16 feet higher than the home plate. I mean, like the ball that Frank hit, in theory, you know, this is home plate and this is where the ball landed. It was literally the same height. So there's no question about a projection of how far it would have gone. They kind of know where it went. We know where it landed. So it was at the same level. In this particular case, if Frank's ball was hit and it would be up here. 16 feet higher, that, then you could throw whatever the projection would be, probably throw another 20, 30, whatever.
Okay, yep.
So, yeah, so, hey, make sure
make
sure good conversation.
It would be electric if it were to happen. It would be amazing.
Well, but here's the other thing about it. When Frank's ball left the ballpark, there's two things about this. When Frank's ball left the ballpark, we were only 12 years into it. It was only our 13th year.
Wow, that's right.
And so
60s,
Camden Yard is 30-some years gone, and it hasn't been hit yet.
Correct.
And here's the other thing: if it does get hit, it's going to get hit probably in the lower 3 feet.
The bottom. Right.
Nobody's going to be able to see it except somebody that happens to be standing there, because it'd be impossible.
That's a great point.
You won't be able to see it. So
it won't be a great made-for-TV moment.
No.
It'll just be.
But what I was going to do the other day, and I didn't. Once I found out that Tomey's marker is actually a little bit closer to the warehouse than
Gunners
was, I was going to go out and kind of half walk it off to how far. I'm more interested in how far it was actually from the base of the warehouse.
Yep.
So and I still might do it, but it kind of dulled my.
I understand.
Dulled my enthusiasm, and my back said, "Nah."
I'll pass on that.
Yeah.
Jim Henneman is in studio with us this morning here on GCR. Today's show brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Jim, I want to talk about this year's team, and I want to do it in the context of they did avoid the sweep yesterday, and that was a gutty win, obviously, in Chicago after things were not going so well to start the game. And a lot of teams, it would have been easy to kind of say, all right, this wasn't our weekend, but they did a great job of bouncing back. But they've lost 4 out of their last 7 series now after a strong start. So when we come back in, I just want to discuss, is there anything that needs to change? Is there something, they're going to get Cedric Mullins back, but is it time for Jordan Westberg, Colton Cowser, trying to give the offense a little bit of a kick? I want to discuss that
when we come back.
Yeah. Jim Henneman is here with us. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The All-America Senior Game powered by New Balance will be back at Johns Hopkins Homewood Field on July 29th. The most decorated girls and boys lacrosse players in the country have been invited to play in what is the premier lacrosse event of the year. Every college coach wants their players in this game, and if you dream of being in this game, you start by trying out for one of your regional underclass teams this summer. The best against the best. Get your tickets now at allamericalacrosse.com.
Are you a diehard O's fan looking for the perfect way to show your team spirit? Look no further than Birdland Sports. Birdland Sports is a small business run by fans for fans. They offer a wide variety of unofficial O's merchandise, from the Birds Are Coming tees to player cartoon shirts and more. And the best part? Their prices are more affordable than the big guys. So head to birdlandsports.com and grab your gear today. Show your support for the Birds with Birdland Sports.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Dave Ginsburg remembers Goose as he looks back on the impact that late Tony Saragusa had both on and off the field here in Baltimore. Plus, he explains how Goose's kids are working to continue that legacy with the Goose Flights program. Also inside, Todd Karpovich profiles the path Tyler Wells has taken to becoming a star in the Orioles rotation. And you'll find a special summer travel guide with information about events and activities throughout the state. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/pressboxonline, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know it's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
PressBox is offering new sports bettors the best sign-up bonuses and promos from the 7 legal online sportsbooks here in Maryland. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers right now and get offers like $150 in bonus bets from DraftKings after you place your first $10 bet, or up to $1,250 in bonus bets from Caesars. Time is limited to get the best offers from all of the area sportsbooks. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers and sign up today. The legendary Jim Henneman in studio with us today here on GCR. Of course, you can read all of his stuff at PressBoxOnline.com. Jim, the Orioles do indeed avoid the sweep in Chicago, and I do think there's something to be said for. It feels like this team, whenever they're one loss away from there being some real reason for concern, and I think the Milwaukee series stands out as another example of this. Like, whenever they're a loss away from us saying, boy, there might be some real issues here, they always tend to figure out a way to get a win to prevent there from being disaster. It's been pointed out by a lot of people. They still haven't been swept in a series since Adley Rutschman arrived in Baltimore. And not being swept is not a particular, celebration or demarcation point, but I do think it is noteworthy in the grand scheme of how things have turned for this franchise.
I couldn't agree more. And the point that I kind of was fascinated by a lot of what I think you're talking about. I mean, number one, I went back and did some checking with some people at Elias about a couple of thoughts that I had. But what we forget, this team has been in second place continuously since I think the 13th or 14th of April. When they lost the first game of the series to Tampa Bay 3-0 on June 4, whatever. I looked at this last night. They were 6.5 games out of first place. They have not been that far out of first place since.
Yeah.
And they're closer now than they have been. And this is during the period of time. Now, Tampa Bay is no longer playing at a 700 level. But we went back and had people at Elias check this for me to find a team playing 700 or better. Now, if you remember, the Yankees were playing like 735 this time of year, and there was nobody within sight. So the Tampa Bay, through all this time, now they've dipped under 700 now in the last week. A team playing 700 ball with a minimum of 65 games in the season. You'd have to go back to 1954.
Holy smoke!
To find a team better than less than 6 games out of.
So not even that Mariners team from 2001 that won.
No.
Yeah.
No, and I didn't do and the other part of it is at this point in the season, you'd have to go back over 100 years.
Wow.
Or actually, when I say at this point, it actually the given point was more like 8 or 9 games ago. It was around the 65 game stretch for one team or the other. I forget. But the bottom line is that as good as Tampa Bay has played, they've had a 6.5 game. They've had over a 6-game lead like 3 or 4 days, which is really kind of amazing.
The Orioles have managed to keep enough pressure
and they've been there by themselves. Now, I know that you're saying, because I know I've said it a zillion times, you feel like there's more in the tank. You feel like there's always from the get-go there's something was missing. Right out of the get-go, the 5th starting spot was a mess. This was a mess. That was a mess. And now, sitting 17 games over 500 and 5 games out. No Mullins. Everybody is kind of down on, the Mountcastle thing is, him hitting 120. I mean, hitting whatever, 220 or whatever. Obviously, that doesn't work. But the 11 and 39, which have been there forever, it seems like, the home runs and the RBIs tell you that he had a lot to do with what happened in those early weeks.
He did have a good start.
So I always said, I just don't think this lineup looks as dangerous as it does with him in it somewhere along the line. And obviously you want him, you'd want him hitting more than what he's been hitting in his last, 20, 25 games. But given all that, they're 5 games out, and everybody, it seems like that's into the thing is clamoring for, not just one guy, but 2 or 3 guys to come up and play. Now, look, O'Hearn has done about as good a job as you could possibly hope for him, but
probably shouldn't be playing in the outfield.
But I didn't really understand where that play was, but. The reason he was, Lester apparently is more of a corner infielder than playing in the outfield. And the ball in the outfield, the ball, he just missed, the ball missed his glove, let's put it that way. But the play right before that was also, I'm not going to say those are plays that should have been made, but they could have been made. Well, let's face
that's fair.
it. So,
that's fair. Yes.
And that's that's the official score. Coming out. But I do think that the ball on Lester in the dugout. It's a little tough to give a guy an error on that play, but I thought O'Hearn's ball was an error. I thought that that was the right call. So given all that, we went Westberg, we went Calton. Hurstead, those guys, there's not enough room for all those guys.
No, certainly not.
Now, I just saw, Steve Molesky wrote a thing today about there's a lot of movement going on in the minor leagues. Prieto has gone from Bowie to Norfolk. I'm sure, and he's a guy that has been overlooked in this thing from the get-go.
100%.
Because he's older, and he was an older...
And he's not very big.
International sign, but he was a second baseman. and had played came from Cuba, and you kind of had a feeling this guy may be closer because this is around. He was signed around the same time that.
Well, he was in the first class, was he? He was in the first international signing class the Orioles had?
Well, yeah, but he was not really. I mean,
he wasn't a high dollar guy.
No, because he was like 21.
Right.
I mean, the first class is, they're 15 or 16 years old. That's another whole thing. We don't really want to go there because those guys get signed. But he was a guy you said he might be closer because Westberg, for instance, and these other guys were just starting their careers, and this guy had played in Cuba. So my guess is he's gone to Norfolk. He's going to play. If he's going to play,
so you think that means
somebody's coming up? Now if I had to read something into this right now, the way it looks, because Ortiz is already up here, and I think that a lot from what people have told me and what I've heard, he's a shortstop. Who's a shortstop who maybe can move around with, but primarily he's a shortstop. So I kind of thought that he might be the placeholder for Holiday for
that it might be time to
move. But
move.
now I'm thinking that Henderson might be that guy. And the funny thing of it is, so I've been thinking about this. The other guy started to hit the ball again.
Well,
Mateo. He started to hit the ball.
A little bit, yes.
Well, he drove in a pretty big run.
You're right. There's no doubt. Yesterday,
he get thrown out on a tough play, but he has hit the ball halfway decent. So
I thought he was safe, but I still think he was safe. Yeah.
Well, he might have been, but hey, if it takes over 30 seconds or whatever, whatever they say,
they're going to just.
But
keep the call.
He's another guy who's a quote unquote center field possibility. I mean, a lot of these guys are probably. I mean, you look back at the history of guys like Robbie Yount and Paul Blair and Mickey Mantle and guys who are interchangeable in the middle of the field as shortstops or center fielders. Not suggesting that necessarily is going to happen, but my guess is, I mean, look into this thing. Urias, I don't know. There are days, he can be 0 for 4 with 4 Ks, or he's plays great defense and drives in some key runs. So.
I think what you're talking about, Jim, it's difficult to say who's the guy you're completely casting off.
I'm not kicking him to the curb, and I'm not kicking Frazier to the curb.
Right.
But there's also the DH spot to work into the play, but that's also where and I think maybe in effect down the road, especially with the heat and all, that they may wean Adley out of that DH a little bit just to give him 3 days
just
off. Give him a little bit of a
right.
break, because it's a good thing they got a couple of off days coming up now, because he's going to catch the rest
Basically,
of the week,
yes.
For the next week or so. So I don't know. I mean, again, I say if Prieto's going to Norfolk. That tells me Westberg is coming up here, and maybe as soon as tomorrow.
And presumably he's not coming up to play sparingly. He's coming up to play every day.
And so that could be he can play second or third. I mean, and from what I gather, if it was between he and Henderson, you're going to play Henderson at short and play him the other. But I do think Henderson's still young enough, and with the way everybody talks about Holiday, why. You got to think down the road he's ultimately going to be the guy, which means that sooner or later you got to come up with you got to decide where Henderson's going to play, and my guess is that ultimately is going to be third base, and Westberg is probably ultimately going to be second base, which leaves short.
So then I guess the question would be: are you better off just having those guys play those positions now, not have Henderson play short, have Mateo or Ortiz play short, and have those other guys play the positions you think?
We're trying to improve a team that's 17 games over 500.
I hear you. I hear you.
It's hard. Listen, I'm on the one part of me. I'm with what people are saying, but at the same token, Westberg has done it at AAA, and so he doesn't have a whole lot more to prove. But so did Henderson, and we know that Henderson had.
It took a little while to adjust.
He had to make a little bit of an adjustment. So it's not like he's going to come up here and do the same thing.
I think that might be part of the reason why, though, you want to see it now, Jim. Is the idea of if you're going to need some time to adjust, it's better in June and July than it would be in September, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But by the same token, you're not going to. The guys that you're playing, you're not going to be concerned about playing in August and September, I wouldn't think. I mean, because number one, in Urias' case, he played there last year, and Frazier's been around enough. I mean, Frazier's his overall numbers are not. They don't knock your eyes out, but he's stuck a couple of RBIs in along the way, and he's certainly played good enough defense that. I wouldn't, but I can see a platoon situation there. Make it easy for to use Westberg, and then maybe use Westberg against right-handers as occasionally as a. If Urias is in the lineup, then he probably should be in the field. There's no point in him not being in the field.
Correct.
So, but yeah, I suspect that something's going. That something is. I would be shocked if the roster is not changed in the next 24 hours.
I also we did over on 105.7 yesterday. We did a special Father's Day show, and we had Colton Cowser's dad on, Dale Cowser. I've gotten to know a little bit. And I did not know that Colton's the last week or two been playing a lot more right field. Of course, Colton's been we've thought of him as the center fielder, and the thought was at some point maybe Cedric Mullins might have to move to right field. But I wonder if they're thinking about, hey, when Cedric comes back, we'd actually rather have Colton Cowser in right field.
Well, and let me get on record with this. There's nothing wrong with the guy that's playing right field right now.
He certainly
Santander is a pretty good outfielder.
We saw the play that he made up against the wall in that Saturday game. My kids are still talking about that catch. They're so enamored with it. And we've always known the arm is.
He's got a good arm.
Yes.
And yeah, he's. I think that he's the guy that they use to replace just because they want to use McKenna in certain spots, but I don't like to see him giving up potential at bats in a close game.
This is where I'm wondering I'm wondering, and I understand what you're saying about Ryan Mountcastle, but I'm wondering if they're coming to more of a. We don't know if we can have Ryan Mountcastle hit against righties when he comes back moment.
Well, I'm guessing that they probably would not rush into doing anything, but. It's not like they've set the world on fire during his stretch.
Right.
So I'm not giving up on him. A lot of people are, and if a lot of people had their way, you'd get rid of him to make room for somebody, and you'd either get rid of Frazier or Urias to make room for somebody, and you'd get rid of who only knows what. And I'm sure that people 2 weeks ago would have said, will you get rid of Hicks?
There's no reason for Hicks to be on the team to begin with.
Right now, Hicks is,
yes, he's been one of their most consistent.
He's a cheap free agent. He's got 2 more years left on that contract, plus an option year, and it's a team option.
Wow, jeez.
So now that's not to say,
and I'm not sure how much faith I have that this is going to continue. I
get that because he's had his share of soft contact hits, but he's also hit some balls pretty crisply in key situations too. So, and on top of it, he's I don't know whether elite's the word or not, but he's a very good outfielder. So he's played center field. He's not Mullins going to get the ball probably, but he's not far behind it, and he does have a better arm.
So let me go to another area I'm writing about today for Press Box.
Okay.
And I'm sure you'll be thrilled to talk about innings limits. I'm sure that'll be a very exciting topic for you, Jim Henneman. Tyler Wells.
That's on my list. A couple of things, yeah.
Tyler Wells has been outstanding this season. He's been incredible. He obviously leads all of baseball in WHIP, walks and hits per innings pitched, by more than 1/10 of a percentage point. It's remarkable. He's 183 batting average against is second in baseball behind only Shohei Ohtani. He's improved his strikeout numbers. I think it's now 6 of his last 7 starts. He's had 7 strikeouts or more. The trend is significant on top of the totality. He has not only had his best season, he's pitching unbelievably well of late. He's also only 22 innings away from matching his innings total from a year ago. He's never pitched more than 119 innings in a season. He's going to get to that. If he continues to pitch every 5th game, he's going to get to that total from a year ago by well before the All-Star break. And as much as we can get frustrated about it, we can be sure that the Orioles are going to have a number that's a limit for them for this season, whether that's 140, 150, 160, whatever it is. I've talked to a bunch of people, and I've gotten the sense that it could be anywhere between 40 to 60 more innings than a year ago would be a reasonable number. What do you do about Tyler Wells?
I'm not buying that. Number
Okay.
one, because number one, Tyler is. And I don't mean to be mercenary about this, but he's 28 years old. He's a big guy. He's a big, strong guy. He's been through the surgery processes. He's been through the build-up processes, and I think that really he's at that point in his career where the harness is off.
Okay.
I think the training wheels are gone, and now that doesn't mean that they're going to let him pitch more than 6 innings, which. Believe me, the indications that I get, and I haven't talked to him directly, but I get the impression listening to that he's not necessarily done at the end of 6 innings, and there are times when
I mean, last time out, he obviously went into the 7th. Probably would have finished the 7th had he not had to face a guy that already hit 2 home runs.
And the home run, and the home runs are
it's an issue.
Is an issue because you could, as good as the whip is, the home runs make the whip.
Yep,
less impressive because
he's got a 3+ ERA with that whip because he's given up that many home runs.
However, there's a lot of things in the pitcher stats that don't make any sense. I mean, they talk about the guy's strikeouts per 9 innings. Why do we talk about strikeouts per 9 innings when nobody pitches 9 innings anymore?
That's fair.
How many innings? How many strikeouts per inning?
Yeah.
I mean, that really has never made any sense to me because you're comparing a Tyler Wells or
I'm not convinced
Jared Kerr to a Sandy Koufax.
Right. I was going to say, I'm not convinced that Palmer couldn't still give you 9 innings if he needed at this point.
I mean, and Jim was not a strikeout pitcher.
Right.
I mean, which kind of comes a little bit. I mean, I know it almost came to a shock to me even when I realized that he had never struck out 200 batters in the season,
right?
But to go back to the other thing, I think Tyler Wells, and to a lesser degree, I mean, these guys are 27, 28 years old now. This is not, protecting
a 23-year-old
a
or
Bundy or a Gosman or those kind of guys, which, as we know, didn't work out either. I mean, everybody has these philosophies about innings limits, but they don't seem to be curtailing anything. They don't seem to be
preventing injuries.
And it's like this thing with Hall. I have no idea what this thing is.
The deloading, that's.
I think he's down there too. So it's like throwing on the backfields.
How is that helping you prepare for?
It doesn't count. I don't know. Now I'm sure they have their reasons. They got. It's just like with G-Rod. I mean, I think his training wheels were off too. I don't think he was on any innings limits, but I would like to see guys. I was watching his game on the television on a computer.
So were we actually
this last outing, and when the sixth inning came and landed and he was gone, I'm like, why? Why let him go back? Because you got to, somewhere on the line you have to learn to get through those, push the thing, so that it's not. I don't. It's a bad analogy, I guess, but if you're training guys, you're talking about is starting pitchers, and they don't go far enough. Well, they don't go far enough because when it comes to the 6th inning,
you go ahead and go get them. Right.
They talk about facing the lineup 3 times, going through the lineup 3 times. So do you know that to pitch 6 innings and not go through, the only way you can not go through the lineup
to get everybody out
is to be perfect.
Yes,
you have to be perfect. So you have to face 18 guys for 6 innings.
Yep.
That's the only way to do that. It's and these numbers about when they do face guys a 3rd time. They're facing the top of the order. So one of the reasons about the opener thing is if you do get to the 3rd time, at least you're maybe at the back end of the lineup. I don't know. Is it overthinking, over whatever? I don't like the idea of saying I'm not going to go more than 6 innings with the guy, because that automatically means you're going to use the way the game is being played. And this is not. I think Hyatt has done a marvelous job with this team. Don't get me wrong. I just think it's the way the game is played today. It's not just here. It's everywhere. I just look for somewhere on the line for somebody to say, hey, if we use 4 pitchers every game, somebody's not going to have it. I mean, what you're basically saying is that you got to bring 3 guys in, and they all got to get 3 guys out. Boom, boom, boom. It's just that's hard to do. And if you only go 5 innings,
oh yeah,
So
So let me go to 2 things that you brought up within that context. You brought up Brandon Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is still a bit of a jury out on Brandon Hyde as being the guy to guide the Orioles to a World Series title. He's obviously done a remarkable job. And I made a comparison to John Harbaugh that I don't know what John Harbaugh's X's and O's strength is, but I know that he's been around a lot of winning teams, and there's been a winning culture that has surrounded the Baltimore Ravens the entire time that John Harbaugh has been the coach. And that matters to me. Whatever the X's and O's are, the fact that the culture has been a winning culture matters. And I'm feeling something similar with Brandon Hyde, which is I can't tell you definitively what he does that makes him a good manager, and I certainly have questions every now and then about certain decisions
all you
that are
got to
made.
do is be more active on social media.
Well, yeah, sure.
You
That's
can find out what it is. I mean, every time you make when you're pitching, when you use pitching the way that it's being used in this game today, every time you make a move,
you're going to be
is going to be vulnerable because the one guy that doesn't pitch good, I mean, is going to be your whatever. Now, I will say this: if last year had it been the same kind of year as the year before, or close to it,
you think he would have been?
He probably would have been in trouble. He probably would have been. And I don't really know that, but if you go back and look at expansion teams or expansion-like teams, he's lasted longer than. I mean, when you stop and think about it, I mean, Houston, all those places. I mean, even the places that Buck went, which weren't expansion teams, but they were teams that were coming in. I mean, it's almost unheard of. 5 years, to go 5 years.
There's clearly a commitment with Brandon Hyde here.
And he had situation. Well, he had the pandemic thing, which crazy enough was really not the best thing that happened because they were for what it was, they were decent.
That little short. Yeah, it's a good point. They actually played some decent baseball.
And in 19 and I'll never forget this. In 2019, his very first spring, the best player on that team, that whole spring training, without question in my mind, was Austin Hayes, and he was sent out. I'm convinced as much to let's not get too anxious to get this guy's clock going. Let's get him out and get him some time, and we'll bring him up a little. And then he went out and got hurt, never got back up that year, missed the whole next year. So I'm not saying that's why he got hurt because it wasn't obviously. Right. But we're starting to see a little bit more now. I mean, to me, he's as good an all-around player when you take in the defense and all the other, the running.
Incredibly
ability.
Consistent hitter, range.
Now, I mean, is he a 320 hitter? I don't.
Probably not.
Probably not. He's not an OB. He's not an OB guy. From what.
And obviously, somebody's going to point out, hey, he got off to a really good start a year ago, and he couldn't sustain it for the entirety of the season. So we need to see him do that.
And there's always a thing, like he's hitting I looked at this, he's hitting 320, and his on base percentage is 360. Well, you hear a lot of people say, well, batting average plus 80 points. And I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. Would you rather have a 280 hitter? Whose on base percentage is 360, or you want a 320 hitter whose on base percentage whatever. So, I mean, I'm a
more good things can happen when you get hits. Is your point? Yes.
If the guy's coming to the batter's box with a tying run on third and less than 2 outs, I want the guy that gets a hit, not the guy that walks. So, and that's and the perfect combination to the things from what we've seen is Adley. I mean, there's no question about that. And yet there was a startling statistic that they threw up on the thing yesterday that he had taken 145 first pitch strikes. Now, when you stop and consider the plate appearances was like in the 300s or something. Now there's a lot of those first pitches were also balls. It means. And yet, the hit that drove in the last run was on the first, and the at bat before that, he had taken a pitch right at the knees, and then the next pitch was a little bit below, and he went out. But the last time up, he was all over the first pitch. So
it's interesting. That's interesting.
So I'm giving him I mean, I was one of those things. Maybe he needs to be a little bit more aggressive, but he's too good. I'm not gonna.
He works in at bat, man. There is something about just watching Adley Rutschman working at bat.
But that was a startling statistic.
That is. I did not realize the number was that high.
And
yeah.
it's not something that. I mean, the problem. I asked Rich Newbroth the other day. I said, Rich, every time I pick up a paper, or the computer, or read something today, there's something every single day that never happened before in the history of the game. Because of what they can do, boom, 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 boom. Oh, look at this. This guy did this. This guy did that. And it's 3 games, 5 games, 6 games, 1 week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, whatever. So they can find so much today that has never been done before. It's kind of crazy. But that statistic, when they threw that up there, I said, I don't even know who even would have thought to look that up. But he was a notorious non-first pitch swinger.
Correct.
We know that.
Yep.
But I found that to be because it was not half of his plate appearances, but it was close.
It's a significant number. I hear that.
It was close.
Let's wrap with that. Adley, what's your sense? We all know how special it's been, but it's not something you can define easily with one statistic. There's not one thing that you can say. Here's why Adley Rutschman is. Johnny Bench. Here's what you can't find a number that does it. How do you define who Adley Rutschman is? Why his presence has been so significant to how the Orioles have turned this thing around?
I think the thing you can say about him is because he's been as advertised. I mean, he's been everything that everybody said he was. And to me, from a distance, the thing that's most impressive, apparently, from what I can tell, is the way he's accepted by everybody else. I mean, I think that, when you have 21, 22, 27, 28-year-old guys that looking the same way at a guy who's 25 and doing the things he does, I think that says a lot. I think his throwing could be better. I have serious. I hate all the framing stuff because I think
a strike should be a strike and a ball should be a ball.
You watch guys, and you're saying you can see what I'm saying. Everybody catches the ball. This is how you. They're taught to catch the ball with a snap. You remember J.J. Hardy when Buck was talking about J.J. Hardy he snapped the ball from the top. No, he didn't catch the ball down here and then touch it. He was on top of the ball, taking the ball down, and that's the way they're taught to catch it. And I know enough umpires to know that an umpire's going to say if they think a guy is trying to steal a strike, they'll tell him that's going to cost you. That's going to cost you more than it's going to help you. Don't be trying to especially if a guy does it and then he freezes it and holds it for a period of time, especially if you feel like they both know. I mean, the strike zone. I mean, I don't know if we get to automatic strike zones. What I want to know is the technology going to call the strike zone the way it's written in the book?
Correct.
Or is it going to be good enough that it's going to say, well, most of the ball has to be inside? Because right now, a 17-inch wide plate is 23 plus inches.
Correct, because the ball goes off.
Because any part of it. So I said you take the strike zone that you see in the box and you put a ball up here and you put a ball there. This ball up here to a right-handed hitter is unhittable. And this one down here is pretty much unhittable. And this one down, you put those 4 circles around the box. Are they all going to be strikes?
Right, because letter of the law.
If they are, batting averages are going to plummet.
Yep.
I mean, so it would be, and I mean, as much as I love to watch to listen to Jim, I'm going to say, Jim, you're talking about what a bad call is, but this pitch is a strike.
Oh, he was all over Cousins the other day. Oh my God, he was killing Cousins. Now Cousins stunk on Saturday, but he was all over.
Well, there are times I didn't even know who was back there. I just know everybody. Well, actually, I thought when was CBC? Buckner was behind.
Oh, it was Buckner. That wasn't Cousins.
Yeah,
it was Buckner. That's right. Thank
yeah.
you. That's exactly who it was.
Right.
It was Buckner on Saturday, and he was all over him. God, he was killing him. But again, he stunk. That wasn't balls that were on the edge. That was balls that were
But you know,
4 inches off the plate.
I watched a lot of the stuff, and I've been watching a lot of college baseball. They don't throw that box up there as much. You know, when you look at that box when it's up there, and you say, I'm looking at it when you see the pitch live, you're like saying, okay, that's a ball because that's been a ball for 50 years or 100 years or whatever, and you see it resting right on the edge. So I have some question about what will happen there if they ever go to automatics. I mean, that's everybody wants. One thing I saw, this guy was getting roasted. He said his rating for this game was 94%, and I'm like, 94%. I mean, and it was like, and I went and looked at one of those things that there's so many of these websites.
The umpire charts, right? Yeah.
Awful announcing, awful umpiring, awful writing, awful directing. Awful,
yes, correct.
Whatever. And you go.
We're proud to say we've made all of those lists.
Yeah,
it's an amazing accomplishment from Glenn Clark Radio.
But they said, well, what's the average? They said, well, the average umpire is like 95, 96%. And I'm like saying, well, 95, 96%. A guy's calling 300 pitches a game. You know, he's missing. What? 12 pitches a game.
It's not that bad, right? I hear you. I hear you.
Come on,
Jim Henneman. I really appreciate you coming and hanging out with us this morning, sir. This is a lot of fun. I would love to do this again.
As long as you don't put a muzzle on me, I'm fine.
All right, we'll let you go all the time. We'll always willing to let you go. You said you're going to be writing something this week. You had some notes.
I'm going to work on that. I want to work on that. The thing I want to try to get that for this little series coming up. This series again. You were talking about games. I had the game the 10-2 game. Mm-hmm. Which really wasn't a 10-2 game until it got ugly at the end. That was one of those games that when it's over, you go, man, that game left a really bad taste in your mouth. You know, tonight's game is really important. And then they go and lose a game on a thing where a strike three.
Yeah,
well, it wasn't a drop.
It was in the dirt. Right, it was in the dirt.
But it was a strike three and a 2-out walk.
Yep.
And then a base hit and it's 2 runs. You know. And then, and they lose that game.
And then O'Hearn missed a home run by 5 feet or whatever.
And then you watch the game yesterday, and then when I saw the 2 plays, and all of a sudden, they're down 3-2, and you're like, you know what? This is the kind of game that you just can't. And so that's impressive when they come back. And I have to be honest with you, they win games like that. I mean, this is not the 27 Yankees lineup.
Sure, right? It's not murderers.
So,
right? I get that.
I mean,
yes.
I love what O'Hearn's doing, but he's not a number 4 hitter. And the back of his card doesn't say that he's going to do what he's been doing any more than the back of Hicks's card says he's going to continue to do. Although he's had so there's some maneuverability there. There's no question. I mean, Lester, had I don't know. I mean, I got to think he's kind of on the bubble.
I think so
right
too.
Here,
yes.
And I think that could be the Westberg, the Westberg thing. If they want to, Santander, they've used him at first base. He's given Santander a day off yesterday, but I'm like you. I mean, he catches that ball yesterday. No brainer. And maybe if he's at first base, he might have caught that one too. Who knows?
Yeah, right.
But it's unfair, but that's kind of what happens. I mean, what we say when we say could have, most everybody's saying should have.
Yep. Yep.
And if you didn't do that, so go to Norfolk.
Well, but to their credit, even O'Hearn after that, like everybody contributed yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody
contributed.
I mean,
he got the inning started. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah. So,
everyone contributed in that.
Yeah. So.
Great to see you, sir. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Glenn. I enjoy your stuff.
Would love to do. I got to say this about Jim. Jim has no need to say anything nice to anybody else. He doesn't have to do that. He's a legend.
No, don't trust me. Don't
stop.
Don't overdo that. No,
Jim will always reach out and say, "Hey, I really enjoy it," and it means I hope you know that means the world. It means the world.
Listen, I had people that I try to young guys. I try to remember to be treat young guys the way I was treated when I was young. So, and so in the case that what you're talking about is any of your friends, anybody who's listening to this thing, if you haven't read Glenn's thing on the astronaut. Well, go get it. That was
Reed
awesome.
Wiseman. I was trying to tell.
That was awesome.
I was trying to explain to Griffin how that was the most excited I was to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody all year long.
I could get
was
that.
to talk to Reed Wiseman.
You know, I mean, '66. Gus Grissom was hanging out with us, and I remember Billy Hunter and I was there, a couple of coaches, and we were sitting around, and all we wanted to talk about was space, and all he wanted to talk about was baseball. And then of course, and then he was the one that died in the chair. One of the ones that died in the chair. So I've had a fascination to that kind of stuff, as I'm sure you and a lot of us. I mean, I remember the moonwalk and all. But all of a sudden,
I don't remember the moon.
well, no, I get it, but but the thing of it is that all of a sudden, that was big deal. All of a sudden, now it's on page 13.
Right.
I
Correct.
mean, we do this stuff today.
I keep trying to explain it. He's going to the moon.
Yeah.
We should be making a bigger deal out of it.
We don't. Yeah, and the moon is like halfway to Mars.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really. Okay.
Right.
Well, time. So.
We should have more context for how ballsy these people are that are willing to go up in a machine not knowing what might happen at that point. We should have context for that.
And it's not like, it's like, I mean, I remember watching
the challenge, right?
Watching Columbia, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Columbia, right?
With
Just
with a teacher on it, and her parents in the stands.
Yes,
that was
the guts of these people to do this should be more recognized. It is remarkable to me when a human being says, yes, I think that I can help better society, and I'll take upon the risk to go do something that other human beings can't do.
Well, I admire your versatility. It's a whole lot better than it's a lot more fun talking to an astronaut than whether a shortstop can go to his left or right.
Jim Henneman, thank you, sir. Great to see you. We still have a lot.
My pleasure, anytime.
Lot to do today. Include John Smoltz is going to join us this hour, the Hall of Famer.
Okay.
We will chat with Smoltz here.
And listen, that's a good one, because we're always talking about trades and stuff like that. Don't forget Dole Alexander.
That's right.
For John
Smoltz worked out pretty well for the Braves. There's no question about that. All right, we got a lot more to do. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Your summer destination is closer than you think at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. With an expansive gaming floor and incredible dining options ready for you to explore, your adventure awaits. Dine at the new Coho Korean Barbecue House coming in July, or on the patio at the Prime Rib. Enjoy the summertime breeze at Orchid Smoking Patio. Limited time packages starting at $229. What are you waiting for? Book now. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The Orioles are off and running, out to prove that last season wasn't a fluke, and they are one of the best teams in baseball. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, host of the Bat Around for Pressbox. Tune in every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon as Zach Goodman and I break down every Adley bomb, every Tony Tater, and every save from the mountain. Like a warm hug from Rutschman, the Bat Around has you covered with all things Orioles as we embark on what's sure to be a magical summer in Birdland. So tune in every Saturday for the best in Orioles coverage right here on the Bat Around.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get, so get your crab-eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab-eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, What's wrong with you?
Thanks again to Jim Henneman for stopping by, hanging out with us this morning. That was a lot of fun, just talking shop with a legend. Appreciate him doing that. And, yeah, if you missed yesterday on 105.7 The Fan, as I was saying, Rita and I had a really special Father's Day show where we caught up with Colton Cowser's dad and Kyle Hamilton's dad and Trenton Simpson's dad, which was a really neat conversation. You can find that over on the 105.7 The Fans page. Also, Kevin Zeitler, Ravens guard, who's a dad, wanted to talk to us about fatherhood. So we had a really fun day talking about dads and telling dad stories. And I got a little emotional with some people's stories about their dads. It was a neat day. So if you missed any of that, I would encourage you to check that out. We try to do that for Mother's Day and Father's Day every year. If you got to work Sundays, it means you got to work those days. And so we try to make them a little special and catch up and hear some stories. Kyle Hamilton's dad talking about there was a text exchange the week of the Miami game last year where Kyle Hamilton basically said to his dad, we're gonna find out if the cheetah is really the cheetah. And then, of course, we all know what happened. And so apparently both Kyle's dad and Kyle's mom roasted him after. That's the relation. Now, they're not together, his dad and his mom, but apparently they have this relationship. And he says the mom is ruthless, just ruthless about those things. And there were some really great stories told about that. So I'd encourage you to go check those out over in their page. I greatly enjoyed the soccer last night.
Oh, yeah.
I found that a little surprising, frankly. I thought that Canada was the team to beat.
Down two guys, too. And
down two of your better players,
right.
obviously, in Destin McKennie. And then, what's-his-face got hurt during the match. They'd already scored. Yeah,
Gio
Gio
already
Reyna,
assisted twice.
Right,
so.
they'd already scored 2 goals by that point, so it was a little bit easier to overcome. Balogun looks every bit the part. That's very exciting. We're 2 matches in, and it is hard to not be overwhelmed with Balogun. A set-piece goal, my kingdom for a set-piece goal, right? Who would have thought? There are some levels of soccer where everybody scores on set pieces. The U.S. had not scored a set piece in seemingly forever. Yeah.
I mean, they were talking about it on the pregame. I think it was Charlie Davies and Clint Dempsey. They both were like, "Can you guys score?" They were talking to whoever the new VP is.
Okay.
And they
it was Gooch. It was a Gucci Onyewu.
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm. They're like, "Can you score on a set piece?"
Yep.
And then they do 12 minutes in.
Remarkable. I certainly did not have Chris Richards on my bingo card for scoring a goal, but I'll take it. There was another.
He almost had it. Yeah.
Well, there was the header off the crossbar.
Mm-hmm.
Then it wasn't Richards. It was somebody else. There was another defender that got a strike earlier before they had scored either goal. Very early in the match, someone got a strike.
Was that Anthony Robinson?
I don't think it was. Oh, it's gonna drive me nuts.
Or Scally?
Maybe, but
Zim.
It was just outside the box and served the ball damn near into the upper 90. And you're like, what is going on here? What is happening?
That team beats England 3-0.
Let's maybe ease up on 3-0, but it's very difficult because as you're watching this, there's the small party that says, Are we sure we shouldn't be sticking with B.J. Callahan?
That's what
are you
Is
sure?
he the greatest tenure in U.S. men's national?
He's going to coach the Gold Cup, which gets underway this week. They'll be the favorites to win the Gold Cup, but the Gold Cup obviously is a little bit different because these are not the full national team rosters. They win the Gold Cup, that conversation's going to be real. They're going to be educated people. They're going to say, what are we doing here? Why are we turning away from someone that it's not just that they've won, they're playing an entertaining style of soccer, and that's so dramatically un-American. So I'm not trying to create the controversy myself, and Lord knows I don't have the power to do that within the soccer community. It ain't me, babe. But I don't know. It's hard for a dummy, and hello, I'm Glenn Clark, dummy here. It's hard for a dummy to see the excitement of the last couple matches and not start to think about, hey, why not this guy? Why not this style? Why not this be American soccer? It was very pleasant as the U.S. won the CONCACAF Nations League. Quickly, today is a holiday. We decided to come in and work the show. As I said at the top of the show, very happy Juneteenth to everyone. Stan, Ross, and Luke are not going to do today. They're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock, facebook.com/PressBoxSports. So make sure you tuned in for that. It's not going to be today. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock. And the Orioles are off today anyway, so maybe by then we'll have some news about perhaps a significant call-up that those guys can discuss. We would all appreciate that. But tomorrow, 4 o'clock for Stan, Ross, and Luke, facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Our next guest, of course, a Hall of Famer, lead Fox analyst, and he was on the Flippin' Bats podcast recently and said something very interesting about what he's seeing in how the Orioles are coming together and compared it to the 90s Braves, which, was pretty freaking good and sustainable for a long time, including a World Series title. Joining us now, he is the legendary John Smoltz. He's with us on GCR. John, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to catch up with you. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
John, I think you got a lot of us very excited about what you had to say. We are all quite enamored with what the Orioles have built and started to put together. The sustainability of it, the idea that there could be a window here for the next few years, that this might not just be a, hey, they're good this year thing. They might be even better with Jackson Holliday and other guys still on the way. It sounds like you genuinely believe the Orioles are putting something together that could sustain and create a championship window of a few years.
I really do. I mean, the only unfortunate thing is they're in a beast of a division.
There's no doubt.
Right? I mean, that's the only unfortunate thing, and for them to compete the way they are in a division that's had some heavyweights speaks volumes of the organization and management that have been able to instill confidence in the young players to develop and to win despite the expectations not being great, or at least I think of our 1990 team when Bobby took over. The second half, we started to feel something different. I mean, we didn't know what the moves were going to be made, the next year. We didn't know if we'd even have an opportunity to compete for the playoffs. But what we did know is in the second half, we started to play better baseball. And it did. I'm not huge into carry over into the next year, because the next year could be totally different. But it did have some carryover. And I find that the Orioles last year, in the midst of everything that was going on, had some confidence built in young players. They were starting to use some young pitchers, getting that experience, which is vital, not something that a lot of clubs do these days. You either have it or you don't. You get pushed around, you go to the bullpen, you go back and forth. Developing innings and developing pitchers is the only way you can have sustainability. And I think they're starting to do that. They have some exciting young players. I think if you polled 1,000 fans, they couldn't name 10 players on the Orioles. But that's okay, because you couldn't name 10 players on the Braves in 90, and then all of a sudden it became household names.
Yep.
And, obviously we did it with some pitching. So I think there are some similarities there. They're an exciting team, new rules, taking advantage of it. They play in a hitter-friendly park, but they're in a beast of division. So the new playoff format gives them an extra motivation. They don't have to win the division, and I think it's exciting times for the Orioles.
Let me touch on a couple of things that you brought up there. One, I feel like the word culture has come up a bit recently, and as you talk about what happened a year ago, I think there were some doubts, some questions about Brandon Hyde, who was unproven, about whether or not he's the guy to lead you to a championship tenure. And I can't, from an X's and O's standpoint, tell you what Brandon Hyde brings as a manager. But at some point, how much credit should he be getting for what appears to now be a winning culture? And not just a winning culture, but a pleasant culture. I talked to the veterans on this team. Kyle Gibson will just rave about what it's like to be in this clubhouse right now. How much credit should a manager get? Beyond the fact that there's obviously Adley Rutschman's talented and Gunnar Henderson's talented, but for creating a winning culture and a culture where guys are having fun and want to be here, how much credit should Brandon Hyde get for that?
I think it's huge. I think it's underestimated, undervalued, and not quantified, because analytics wants to quantify everything. and you can't quantify that. You do have no idea if you're just input, output stats and information what a clubhouse culture means. Most people in the analytic world don't value that. And listen, this is the one thing I selfishly hope happens. I've seen this too many times in my career. Somebody takes the helm when they're not very good, trying to build that window of 6 years, rebuild, and then they go get another manager and add a bunch of players.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that doesn't happen here. He deserves a lot of credit. They had to endure a lot of bad losing, and he has created a culture in the midst of that has brought up some young, dynamic players, no doubt. They've drafted, and now they're developing. And if you can keep a culture with the coaching staff, your chances of winning are a lot better because now you've instilled something. But if you're just a placeholder and people are just, I've seen where teams have, the in-between players fill spots so the young players are ready and there really isn't that future for them. I think they're building something pretty special now that, to be honest, you're never going to probably compete in the salary role with the big boys. But baseball today and the way you can play it, you don't have to now. You can take advantage on the bases. You can take advantage of putting the ball in play. Look, they're statistically and offense, they're in the middle of everything,
Yep.
So they're really good. They could probably have an upgrade with their pitching. They got a really good couple last guys at the back of their bullpen. And I think the interesting thing will be, does the organization now feel like, because this is the huge key that fans are going to want to know,
Yep.
can we make a move that makes a difference, that gives us a chance to really mix and match in the playoffs and make a deep run? And that's where teams who are faster than their timeline in the past have not done that. We saw this, saw teams go the other way when they were in the mix because the organization didn't feel like they were ready and didn't want to give away some pieces. If the Orioles can get a player or two with control, that means giving up something, it's a difference maker to that team, and it could be the difference maker that allows them to not only stay in the mix, but kind of go deep. That's the hardest question that management has to answer when they get to that point.
The great John Smoltz is with us here on GCR. John, what you just brought up is very relevant to me because I have assumed all along, I think the Orioles should try to be active. I think you brought up a front-of-the-rotation type pitcher. They're hoping to get John Means back later in the season, but even with that, they could use a real front-of-the-rotation type of pitcher. And I do think there could still be room in there for maybe even a bat, too. But I guess what you're saying is the answer isn't a rental. It's not – I think I agree that there's not a championship. It's so difficult for me to fathom this team winning a World Series that I do think it would be a mistake to move anything for someone that's not going to be around beyond this season.
Yeah, and that's going to be the tough call. See, here's the thing I never like was when people say, oh, the playoffs are going to come around every year now because this is what we built. You don't know that.
That's true.
And so that's the hard part, to make a fan base believe that you are in the playoffs. Like, let's just say it comes just before trade deadline. You're locked in a playoff spot. It would be very difficult for the fan base and the players in that organization to not make any significant moves. Yep. Because then that's telling your team, like, I don't know if we're good enough to do what the Phillies did last year. I mean, no one can tell me that anybody in experts in baseball thought the Phillies could make a deep run and get to the World Series.
It's very true.
But they got hot. They got in. And the difference is they did have some pitchers that could carry them there. That is the only thing now. With young pitching and not a lot of innings, it is very difficult to make a deep run if you don't have guys that can finish, that don't go empty the tank, right? That still have innings or not limits. So That's the difference. When you're ahead of the curve and you're you're winning more than you thought you were capable of, that's why the management gets paid to make those tough decisions. And it'll be interesting to see how the Orioles handle that because they are a very dangerous team to play right now. And to your point, whether or not they feel like they can get past some of the big boys, getting to the playoffs would be huge for this organization. Giving these young players a taste of it, essential. Even if they didn't make a marquee move, getting to the playoffs would be what they need as an organization to move forward if you're going to kind of mirror what we did in 1990, although be it a totally different era. That's what allowed us to, sustain a long run.
John, I loathe to ask you about innings limits because if I remember right, I don't think you're a huge innings limits guy, but you just brought this up. I'm writing about it this week. Tyler Wells has really been quite a revelation. I mean, he's given up too many home runs, but he's leading all of baseball in WHIP by a good margin. He's got the second best batting average against in all of baseball this season. The strikeout numbers are up. Tyler Wells is really coming into his own, but he's also about 20 innings away from matching his total of a year ago, and I don't know how much further they can go beyond that. But that's on one side, and then on the other side, he's also 28 years old, right? And this isn't a 22-year-old that we're talking about. It's someone that's getting into an elevated part of their career. So how much further can you go with some? Again, at 103 a year ago, before that, it had been 4 years since he had thrown 100 innings because he had been hurt and he had been through Tommy John surgery and the pandemic and all of that stuff. How much further can you really go innings-wise with a pitcher beyond where he was at 103 a year ago and count on it and not run the risk of it damaging someone, remembering he's, again, a little bit further on in his career at 28?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're all brainwashed, and I'm not saying we're brainwashed in the right way. This is a different era and a different system, and for whatever reason, people have chosen to go about developing pitchers in this way. I think it's flawed. I think it's ultimately the wrong way, but given the fact that it is what it is, he's probably got 30 more innings past his max, and they're going to have to probably spread that out. I'm not a big fan on the way they develop pitchers. Listen, I'd be the first to tell you if analytics came into this game saying which they did, saying we're going to put players in better position to stay healthy. We fixed and know how to get pitching and keep them healthy. None of that's worked. So you never hear them say another word about that. They just plug and place and plug and replace. So that part to me still is an era that is driven by velocity and max effort, and you're going to need 35 to 40 pitchers to get through a season. That's insane to me, but that's just the way it is. So given what you just laid out, I think they're going to have to find ways to rest and not buy into this everyone's going to break mantra. I mean, if you can stretch it out and utilize him and use the all-star break and use different starts, I think that's the best way given what we have today. But that goes back to my earlier point. It's why it's hard to win and go deep with a young, developed staff that you want to have for the future. And if you look at every playoff team in the last 10 years, 15 years, very few of them have had guys with innings limits that they couldn't get to the playoffs. And then here's the other interesting thing, just as a caveat. Somehow, some way, they've determined once you get to the playoffs, the innings limits don't matter anymore.
Right.
I kind of laugh at that because that is the most. That tells me there is no such thing as knowing how to navigate pitchers because they're not preparing them for their job. They're preparing them for what they want in a vacuum. They want stuff, spin, and velocity. And when you do those things, you need more pitchers.
It's really fascinating. Obviously the conversation has come up a lot recently around the College World Series and seeing guys go 140, 150 pitches, and people say it's abusive. And I'm like, I get it. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I also know that most of these guys are probably not going to be major league pitchers at some point, and they want a chance to win a championship with their friends. And I don't have an easy answer to these questions, John. I'm glad I'm not the one that's being paid to make these decisions.
And that's why I say somebody came up with an artificial number.
Yeah.
That means absolutely nothing. That has brainwashed everybody. I'm telling you to the point where some of my contemporaries are even buying into it because it's been pushed so much. You see a pitcher get to 110 and they're like, oh my gosh, get him out. Why? One game doesn't determine the totality of the season. If I flick your bicep very softly, over time, eventually it will bruise. And that's like mechanics. If you're repeating your mechanics, you can't just convey a number. If a guy's clean in a game and has no stress, he should be able to pitch X amount of pitches, and then vice versa. If he's not, get him out early. Because to me, an artificial number has done more harm to the game than using your eyes and using, the ability to see that each game in itself should be different. And let's not just lop everybody in because some guys could pitch 110 and some guys could only pitch 80. So that one individual that pitched and struck 16 guys out for Stanford, I know the whole world's blowing up that this guy's now going to get hurt. It's a brainwashing. Yet we just have to utilize some common sense and be able to understand that pitching's not natural, but if you don't repeat your mechanics, it doesn't matter what pitch limit you put on the guy. If you got bad mechanics, you got a greater chance of getting hurt.
It's fascinating. John, before I let you go, if I could, we were talking earlier. The Orioles avoided a sweep yesterday in Chicago, and avoiding sweeps is not you don't hang banners for that. But they haven't been swept once since Adley Rutschman arrived. It seems like every time we start to think, oh boy, this is really starting to go south, they figure out a way to win a game. And Adley Rutschman's arrival has been such a demarcation point for this franchise. I know you haven't done, I don't know if you've done how many Orioles games you've done at all. I don't think you've done any this year. But in watching from afar, have you gotten a sense for the value of Adley Rutschman and how to define the way that his presence has maybe gone to change this organization?
That's been huge. I mean, the one thing I can tell you about baseball is when we project a star or when we get a high draft pick, young player, or a stud college, most of the time they are developing into who they say they're going to be. And this has been an indicator for the Orioles on how, it's so important. The numbers run the course on when he's gotten called up, what they've done, Santander and what he's done. You flex in an O'Hearn and you get, guys that know how to hit and guys that can run and steal bases. This is what the Orioles can be, even though they live in a park where you would think you'd put together a Masters type lineup. Now with the rules and just the way the game has changed, they're gonna drive people crazy. I think stolen bases. They're gonna put the ball in play. Look, what I like about their roster. Look, this is what I'm big on because I do the postseason, I do the World Series, and I see these things run every single year. If you put the ball in play more than the other team, if you pitch the ball pretty well, you're going to have a chance. They don't strike out a lot, and that's the key. No team that's won the World Series in the last 25 years has been inside the top 10 with the exception of one or two outliers. Everybody that kind of gets to the end put the ball in play more than the other team, and that's just something that, it's hard to outrun. If you slug and hit a bunch of home runs with swing and miss a lot, good pitching is going to neutralize you every time in the postseason. And so that's what they've got going for them. And if they can continue that trend, I really, really do like the Baltimore Orioles, not only this year, but in the next 2 to 3 years to really set themselves apart.
John, is there anything at all that we can plug for you, sir?
No, I'm just I'm kind of getting ready for the I'm leaving tomorrow. For
you headed to London?
Game,
yeah, that's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah,
that's
Cubs Cardinals. I've had a chance to do that a couple times now, and that's a pretty neat thing. And then once we get to the All-Star break, then everything starts heating up.
No doubt.
Teams that are in the mix.
Of course, Saturday afternoon, Cubs Cardinals on Fox. John will be there for that. John, really, boy, your words and this comparison is something that's got a lot of Orioles fans very excited about it, and we're obviously excited in general. Appreciate you taking the time for us this morning. Thanks so much for doing this.
You got it, guys. Have a good one.
It's the great John Smoltz with us here on GCR with obviously a lot of high praise. And, I get it. Somebody would say that the disappointing part about those 90s Braves is that they only won the one World Series, right, in 95. But they created a stretch of sustainability where they were in the mix. And, of course, they were up 2-0 in another World Series. And I don't like to talk about that one because I don't care for the team that came back and won that World Series. But still, they were regularly in the mix throughout the course of that era. And that's what you're hoping the Orioles can build. To John Smoltz's point, the Braves also had some inherent advantages. They had all of their games on national TV at that point. That created more of a national market. And so there was more money coming in, and that allowed for more money to be spent to fortify the team. I'm not trying to make an apples-to-apples comparison between the Braves and the Orioles, but the bedrock, the foundation of what the Orioles are building here, that comparison I like a great deal. Hey, if you have not picked up this print issue of Press Box yet, I would encourage you to go do it right now. This was a really special Father's Day story, and I found myself wanting to read it again last night before I went to bed on Father's Day, that Dave Ginsburg wrote about Tony Siragusa. and it's a story about a football player, a man, a father, and significantly a father, because a lot of the story is about how his kids are now trying to continue his legacy. Go pick up this print issue today at your neighborhood Royal Farms and at the hundreds of locations around town where you find Pressbox. Read it all. PressBoxOnline.com. All right. We missed him last week. Good to have him back. Big Bad Morning Show, 105.7 The Fan. Also, ConcreteLocks.com, C-O-N-N, ConcreteLocks.com. And picks every day at PressBoxOnline.com. He's our buddy Jeremy Conn. And he's with us now here on GCR. What's going on, dude? How are you?
What's up, man? So a couple of things that I didn't get to tell you about last week was...
you son of a bitch. I know you won the trivia championship. I'm still mad about it. I'm really... I said to my team, I'm like, I don't care. We're not going to win. Like, we're not here to win. We don't belong here. It's sort of like the Miami Heat making the NBA Finals, right? Like, we're not supposed to be here to begin with. So I'm not measuring whether or not we win. I just want to beat Jeremy's team. And I had to leave early to take my kids to the baseball game that day, and I got the message, Jeremy's team won. I said, son of a bitch!
You didn't get the best message.
What?
Your team did better without you.
I know. They did.
Second half surge.
They did. I know. They did. And I wouldn't have helped all that much. Okay, did you get the basketball question?
I got 1 out of 3 right now.
I can't believe you got one. I can't. It is the most asinine question in the history of trivia because it's just basically guess. That's all it is. There is no actual reason. So the question, and I think I brought it up on the show, there are 3 NBA teams ever that have never retired a player's jersey. And all of the 3 teams, I remember one is the Magic, and like, why wouldn't they retire Shaquille O'Neal's jersey? Why in the world would that be the case? I did some, because I'm so mad about the question, I did some research. They've just decided as a franchise they won't retire a number until someone wins an NBA title. Imagine the Dolphins saying to Dan Marino, sorry, guy, we're not going to honor you. You never won a championship.
Yeah, and by the way, see, and that's kind of stupid, too, like when I think about it, because I was reading something about a number that was, I thought semi-retired, and then when Grant Hill went there, they took it out of retirement. But again, the Magic were one of those teams. The only one that I knew was the Raptors, and I knew that one, but even then I second-guessed
But why in the world would they have not retired Vince Carter's jersey? Like, why wouldn't they?
Because he just retired.
Okay, that's true. I mean, that is true that he just retired. But
could they
Tracy McGrady, yeah. Of course they could have retired
maybe?
Tracy McGrady's jersey. By the way, the teams that I guessed, when you find out the players that were retired by these teams, so my guesses, one was a Charlotte. Can you name the player whose number is retired by the Hornets?
Well, I've looked all this stuff
Oh,
up
you did?
now, but,
Okay.
Well, hold on. Let me see if I remember who it was for the Hornets, because it's I think it's a couple players that I don't even know of.
It's
right?
one. It's one player. One player the Hornets have ever retired.
And who is that?
Bobby Phills. They have only ever retired a number because someone died. And I'm not trying to be like I don't want to be a jerk about it. It was very tragic when Bobby Phills passed away. But Bobby Phills was not in any way a player who would be warranted to have their number retired by a team.
The Timberwolves did the same thing. Like, they haven't retired Kevin Garnett's jersey, to my knowledge. They retired Malik Sealy's.
Is that really their one? Okay, well, that's dumb too. But I would have guessed. So. I would have guessed they would have retired Kevin Garnett. So that's stupid too.
I would have too. Yeah.
The next team that I guessed has 2 players with retired numbers. It's the Memphis Grizzlies. Do you know the 2 players whose numbers are retired by the Grizzlies?
I do. One, I was angry at myself that I didn't think of, but I didn't realize they would have retired it that quickly. The other one just doesn't make any sense to me because he's beloved, but it's Tony Allen and Zach Randolph.
Ridiculous. If those numbers are retired by the Grizzlies, why in the F would Tracy McGrady's number not be retired by the Raptors? Why?
By the way, because I'm going to guess the next one that you have picked is the Pelicans.
Yes, of course.
But you didn't guess the Thunder, and because you didn't guess the Thunder, let me point out whose jersey number is retired for the Thunder.
Actually, you know what the funny part is? I actually knew that, and I brought it up when we were discussing. It's Collison, which is the dumbest thing ever. But
Nick Collison.
Yes, yeah. Nick Collison, and the only reason I know it is because I remember how much the internet roasted it the night when it happened. It's the only reason why I knew the answer wasn't the Thunder. No, our three guesses were the Hornets, the Grizzlies, and the Pelicans. And, of course, the Pelicans have – the player whose number is retired by the Pelicans never played for the Pelicans. God! Asinine
By the way, he
question.
barely played in New Orleans.
Correct.
He played for the New Orleans Jazz.
Yes, but
and then they moved to Utah.
He's from there, and he went to LSU, and so he's a beloved figure in the state, Pistol Pete Maravich. So that's the reason why they retired. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
One of my favorite players of all time.
Well, I don't blame you for that, but an asinine question. I'm sure it makes sense that the Clippers haven't retired Bill Walton's uniform. I'm sure that's logical. I'm sure it's sensical that the Clippers, who have had nothing going for them in their history, never said, maybe we could get a couple people to show up for a basketball game tonight if we put up Bill Walton's jersey in the rafters. God!
That's the one that got me. I was so mad at myself because I'm like, they've been around for so long, and they've had really good players that have played there. You figure along the way somewhere that they would have retired it. So what I guess was the Raptors, Pelicans, and Grizzlies. And I thought they all made the most sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
The Orlando one didn't make sense because of all the stuff that we had talked about. You just assumed Shaq was. Even getting Minnesota right was for the wrong reasons. And then some of the other teams, it's just like, come on, guys, it's ridiculous.
That to me, it's more infuriating because, as you and I talked about that day, when you're the sports guy on the team, there is an extraordinary amount of pressure on you when there's a sports question, right? Like, I gave you the one from a couple weeks ago, which was and I gave it to Griffin too, who are the guys that have won 4 or more Cy Young awards. And the first thing that happens in that moment is I have a damn near panic attack.
I did the same thing when you asked me because I went, oh. And then, surprising enough, I tell the story about Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds all the time, 7 Cy Young, 7 MVPs when we're talking about steroid users. And you asked me, and I didn't even bring up Roger Clemens.
So, Clemens is the one that I know off the top. The first thing I say is Clemens. But somehow I convinced myself. And I did well. I went 3 for 4, but I'm furious that I missed Steve Carlton and guessed Verlander instead. But I thought the Verlander's last one was his 4th. I was like, didn't they talk about him joining this club of guys that have won 4 or more? But he joined the club of winning 3 or more because it was his 3rd instead. And the way that I feel when I get a sports question wrong, I feel small because I don't have a ton else. I'm good on the music stuff. I'm good. We've got a movie guy on our team, so I'm good with that. But I don't need to be good because we got a guy who's much better than I am. And oddly, I'm good with current politics. Whenever there's a bizarre question, who's the lieutenant governor of Minnesota? I'm like, well, I actually know that, right? That's
weird.
It's so. We got a question a couple weeks ago, which is who is the current lieutenant governor of Virginia? And I looked around and I was like, oh, this is easy. And everybody looked at me like, what are you talking about? This is easy. I'm like, you guys don't know that Winsome Sears is the lieutenant governor of Virginia? And they're like, no. And then, as it turns out, I was the only guy in the bar that knew that Winsome Sears was the lieutenant governor of Virginia.
I'm pretty sure that guy invented Cracker Barrel.
It's actually a woman.
Maybe I made that up.
It's a woman, Winsome Sears.
Oh,
but that's
pretty sure that chick.
But that's the only thing. Whenever there's a science question, they all look at me. I'm like, I'm not even going to say. I'm just going to add to the chaos here. I'm not going to help if I even start talking in this moment. Whenever there's a question about African geography or Jesus Shakespeare, do I come unglued whenever there's a Shakespeare question? I don't want to say anything because nothing that I say is going to be helpful. So it's imperative that I am able to help on the sports questions because it's really what I'm there for. And when I get a question that's as asinine as that question was, I'm not mad at me. I'm mad at them. That's an asinine effing question that there is no reason why any human being should know that.
And they do that. My big thing with sports questions at trivia, or even if you want to just talk about Jeopardy, it's opposite ends of the spectrum. They're either ridiculously hard to where it's an educated guess at best for most situations, or they're the easiest thing. Who's the all-time? It would be like something stupid of who's the all-time home run leader, and it rhymes with Schmabe Schmoot. They do crap like that all the time, which drives me nuts. And my friends would bust my chops from time to time, but we would get stuff 1952 swimming. Well, that's a sport.
Yeah,
man, get out of here.
Yeah, right.
That's
Nobody knows about it. Yes.
I'll give you the one-time final question. It was a sports question. It was a boxing question, and they showed a picture, and it said, "Name this boxer." And this is before his real height of fame. I think he had just fought Deontay Wilder the first time. I stood up and looked at everyone, and said, "We just won trivia because I'm the only person that knows who this cat is." As soon as they asked the question, they're all looking around. And I was so happy that we finally got a sports question on the last one that wasn't something ridiculous. It was Tyson Fury. So, but it was, great. And it was that one moment where it was something that's not incredible. It was kind of in between, it's a little bit difficult. You have to know something. But why don't we get more sports questions like that so we can pat ourselves on the back and tell everybody how smart we are?
I have in my history of playing trivia, my biggest pulls were somebody put up there was a final at High Tops once where it was, I don't remember, they put up a picture of a very young Eddie Vedder, and the only thing that the only clue in the quiz was this man was in a band called Mookie Blaylock. And I was like, well, I'm good. I got this. Yeah. And we won and I was the only guy in the bar that got that. And then I was the only guy in the bar. This one's even more random. The only guy in the bar that knew that the question was Carl Orff has an opera whose first, I don't even know what they call it, phrase is called O Fortuna. And it's when the category was opera, I was like, no chance. I don't know anything about it. But I happen to know because it's in every sports highlight video ever, it's called Carmina Burana. And if you heard it, you'd say immediately, oh, I know. I've heard that a million times in my life. Dun, 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 dun. And I just happen to know that it's called Carmina Burana. And I jumped out of the chair. And in fact, I might have even said when the category came up, the only way I'll know it is if it's Carmina Burana. And then the question came up, and I was like, holy hell.
My best pull wasn't even an answer that I got right. Somebody smarter on my team got it. But, there was the final question was asked, and I didn't know the answer or anything, but I was, reading part of the question, and I'm like, are they talking about, when they say eyes, is it the eyes in a peacock's feather?
Yeah.
And then my buddy goes, I know the answer. From me saying that,
hey man,
that gave him the answer. It was leading him to it.
I actually always feel good when there's a teamwork answer that comes to. There was one recently, who are the two oldest members of the Senate? And I was like, the guy from Iowa. And I'm screaming, and I'm just Chuck. And Proctor all of a sudden was like, Grassley? I'm like, yes, him, obviously. I totally knew that. Yeah, right. Chuck Woolery, exactly right. Yeah, so congratulations. I appreciate the fact that
man, that's the first time I've won that. I've had
really
good teams that we've won semifinals a bunch of times, but that means nothing except you get to go to the finals.
Yes.
Whereas the next round really means something. You could be, 20th at the semifinals and still make it,
yep.
But, you get your little prize. But it was just kind of cool I know everybody on our team has been playing for a long time and wanting to win that. And the same thing you talked about, the final question, we all came together. And it was a team effort to get the final answer, which is really cool.
It was a movie one, right? it was it was a random.
And I'm going to word it wrong.
Yeah.
It was something like Best Supporting Actress in 2006, Best Actress in 2017 or 16, Best Actress in 2019. We're all in the same movie. Name that movie.
Yeah, and I didn't know
Essentially.
I don't even know that I knew the movie after they told me what it was. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that, so I would have been of no help.
It unraveled for us because the answer ended up being The Favorite.
That's what it was.
Which had Emma Stone in it.
Yeah.
Which she won Best Actress
for La La Land.
Yes, and then the way that we got it is the first person brought up. God, what's the one woman's name in it? The one Best Actress
Olivia,
for The Favorite.
Olivia,
yeah.
Yeah, Olivia Colman. Yeah.
So, and that's how it unraveled. And somebody's like, well, what about 2006? They said, because somebody brought up The Favorite and said, well, Rachel Weisz was in that. And I said, well, didn't she win something for The Constant Gardener? And they're all like, what was that? I said, that was that weird movie with Hugh Jackman. And, they had a great soundtrack, but I think Citizen Cope's on that with Healing Hands or something, or another, not Healing Hands, another song. Maybe it was Healing Hands. Anyway. So one of his long songs is on that soundtrack, and I knew that. And when we brought it up, everybody came to the Favorite, and we knew it was right.
Well,
and we were 1 point ahead of the second place team.
I am jealous, but I'm very happy. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you, man.
That's well done. That's well done, pal. I need you. If you had been on last week, I was going to tell you. I need you to do me a favor. I am not convinced that the show Fubar on Netflix is going to suck. I need you to watch it for me. Okay.
I've already watched it.
Oh, have you? Good. Can you
yeah.
tell me your thoughts?
It's every Arnold Schwarzenegger thing you've ever seen. It's
Okay,
fun.
so I need to watch
Like,
it.
it's
Then.
not
All
going to
right.
win anything. You'll enjoy it. You'll
Yep.
be happy you watched
That's
it.
exactly
It's fun.
when everybody was rolling their eyes at it. I said I feel differently about this. I feel like I might enjoy it, but I literally my plan was to have you go ahead of me and tell me how the temperature of the water, because I thought that you and I would be
The first time is when you got married, and this is so awkward now. But anyway.
I said, please let me know. Just report back to me if you don't.
Don't tell your wife I said that either, because now I can't look her in the eye.
Oh, stop. She would be honored.
I was going to say something really awful right there, and I did.
You know, it's really awkward. I think I've told you before. We have a friend. Our buddy Zach is in that band, All Time Low, and he might be the most handsome man that's ever walked the face of the planet. Like, I'm sexually attracted to him.
Yeah, he could get it, right?
Oh my God, could he ever? I'd be honored. But my wife can't help herself whenever he's around, and we've been friends for a long time. And my wife can't help herself. She's like, "Oh my God, I want to have his babies." And I'm like, "Look, I can't even be mad. I get it. Like, it's that bit. There's a popular tweet that goes around where somebody's like, this is a woman who said, "My husband and I made a cheat sheet list, and he's an idiot because he said, whoever Carmen Electra, and mine was his brother." Which is always one of my favorite things. This is very awkward for us because she, and I don't blame her at all, is very attracted to Zach because, again, he's maybe the most handsome person I've ever seen in my life. And he'll come over and he knows, so he'll go put his arm around her and cuddle with her on the couch. And I'll just sort of sit there
you son of a bitch.
But what am I going to say? No? Of course she should. Yeah. Of course she should. I would if I had the opportunity.
That's what you do. You tell her to get up, that it's your turn now.
Right.
That's what you should do. I saw a shirt today that I really liked and I thought about buying. It said, "If you touch my beard, then I get to touch your butt." But I know what would happen. It would just be a lot of guys touching my beard.
Exactly right. That's
and then I would feel compelled to go ahead and touch their butt because it says it on my shirt.
Well, but what is that? How's that different than when you don't wear the shirt? Exactly. What's the?
Yeah, I know.
What's the?
But I just do it automatically. It just gives me a reason to now.
All right. I don't know if I had anything that I needed to get to. Basically, I think we covered everything. Oh no. Jeremy Conn, by the way, is with us on GCR. Jordan Westberg's got to be here this week, right? It's beyond time. Correct.
It's been beyond time for a couple of guys at AAA, and it's just up to them to make the hard decisions, on what they want to do. Look, they're killing it at AAA. You got 3 guys down there, all of which could be called up at any point in time over the next couple months. So nothing would shock me, and I'm just talking about the bats. I'm not even talking about pitching yet.
So what do they do? What is, because it's a lot of square peg round hole stuff, right? And you say there's difficult decisions to be made. I think what we're really talking about is at some point, you're either deciding, for example, that when Ryan Mountcastle comes back, he's no longer an everyday player. And
he's not their guy. He's never been their guy, and it's been one of the worst-kept secrets. We all like Mountcastle, but analytically speaking, he doesn't fit the mold for what they're looking for.
Right.
So I've always believed that he was going to be a guy on the way out, moved out. And, we had all talked about Austin Hayes, too, thinking about a corner outfield spot, but maybe it's not Austin Hayes. Austin Hayes has shown when he's healthy, and that's been a big if. He's a good player.
He's
good defensively. He's solid. I don't think he's a game changer, but he's one of those, those pieces you need on your team to help everything go.
Yeah, Henneman brought it up early. I don't think he's really going to be a 320 hitter, but even if there's a dip, he's a really helpful player. I think the other awkward part is if you bring up Westberg, is Frazier no longer playing every day? Is you've been doing everything you can to try to keep Arias in the lineup, and I hate piling on Arias because he does just about everything, right? There's really no reason why we wouldn't like Ramon Arias other than, he's not young and didn't come through the system, and we don't feel that very strongly about him. I don't know exactly what that answer is.
Well, I guess a lot's going to depend too on how Mateo hits. I know everybody loves him defensively, but there's plenty of options and things that they can do. I'm just wondering. So here's the one thing I was going to bring up was the fact that now, getting closer and closer to the trade deadline, the NL Central and the Angels are screwing everything up, I think, for everyone, because the Angels got back in the playoff picture now. And then you look at the NL Central, the Cubs are 4 games.
Yeah, nobody's
they're 5
out.
games under 500 and 4 games out of first place. It's just, if everybody's hanging around, will they do what the Orioles did last year when they got killed for trading Jorge Lopez and Trey Mancini and some of those other pieces. Will they get killed for doing that if you're technically in the playoff picture? You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of a weird thing. The Orioles did the right thing, realizing who they were. It pissed off a lot of people that they didn't push and trade and add to make a run to the postseason. But ultimately, they did the right thing.
You know, it's funny. I don't remember who brought it up to me. Somebody in the last week brought up to me the idea, and I get what they're saying, but boy, this city would burn. I had someone come up to me and say, dude, why don't they just try to trade Cano at the deadline? And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? But he said was like, you're seeing that what happened in the first month of the season isn't really his story. He's a really good pitcher, but he ain't that guy. But if you can sell him at a time where everybody thinks he's that guy, God knows what you could get. And he was a throwaway a year ago in a trade that you could now turn into something real. And I just sort of sat there biting my tongue like, I don't think you can do it. I think it would be poisonous with this fan base, but Jesus, there is a point to be made there.
No, there is. But let me say this, Glenn. I mean, was it a throw-in in a trade?
Yeah, or did they just know? Right, yeah.
I mean, like, in all honesty, like when you see a guy like Bradish come along, when you see you look at some of these other players that they've made moves for and brought in. Like, I was joking about the whole dented can theory with the Orioles, like the guys that they pick up off the scrap heap. It seems like most of them have worked out, even if it's just for a short period of time and then we move on from them. But, I mean, you mentioned Adam Frazier, not that he's off the scrap heap, but they really did pick Aaron Hicks off the scrap heap when they needed somebody, and he's looked great. They constantly bring in these guys, Jorge Mateo, who nobody wanted, and, he's looked really good for a while. So I just think that they've done a good job of it. Maybe they are better at scouting.
It's possible. Yeah. Oh, you all right? You got to go? You got to go? Everything okay over there?
Did you lose me?
Oh, yeah, for a second I did. I don't know what happened there. It was weird. All right.
I'm just pacing around my house because I can't stop walking when I'm on the phone. I'm not sitting down.
I understand that problem, by the way. Hey, real quick.
I have no idea why I do this.
What'd you think of the Beal thing?
Man, I disagree with what a lot of people say. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, Beal's going to fit in perfectly there because, like, Beal to me now has to take on that Chris Bosh role and be a glorified jump shooter and play defense. Like, you're taking an all-star caliber player, and I think you're ultimately going to turn him into a 3-and-D guy, and it still may work because those guys are so talented. I wanted to see him go to Miami. I don't know what the Wizards are doing because now the rumor is Porzingis might go to Portland. There's talks of Chris Paul could go to either LA team or Boston or somewhere else. So I don't know what they're going to look like moving forward, but, I mean, I don't know. I'm just done with the super teams, man. I really am. Like, I just love looking at Jokic, as he shows up at a horse race wearing yellow gym shorts and a polo. Like, he doesn't care how he looks going out in public. And then everybody's trying to stop this cat from dominating the league.
I always believe in the fat boy. Yeah, I enjoyed everything about it. I get what you're saying. And look, this is measured, of course, by the fact that I'm a Suns fan, and I would die to see the Suns win. I just don't really know, given, like, he's the only guy on the team right now that can make a three. I still don't know what they're going to do about Ayton. They've got to try to use Ayton in order to improve their depth. But then what happens when they go up against Jokic? Like, I know that Ayton didn't solve it, but like, they're not going to do better than that if they trade away Ayton.
Well, you know what they might do is go to the death squad, and Jokic eats KD alive on one end, and he can't guard him on the other.
Okay, that's
possible. But then that would turn into teams. More teams are going to run zone against the death squad, and it's going to kill them because you're putting out 5 shooters.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to look at it. Like, as a Suns fan, do you want Booker or Beal running the point? Not that this matters as much. And then trying to stay bigger elsewhere. You could have those guys, your 2 guards. You could have one be technically a small forward and bring in a point guard, or have, maybe it's a campaign on your roster or somebody else to help you out. I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of interested to see what they do with it. But I do think Beal is way better than people give him credit for.
I also think that people are killing the Wizards. Like, they had much of a choice here. Like,
No.
I get the Wizards are a joke, but, like, that's not because of this. The Wizards are a joke because the Wizards are a joke. Like, what were they supposed to do? They needed to move on. They needed to, at some point, say, we've got to blow this thing up and find it's not going to be Wembanyama. That would have been perfect and maybe done it a year earlier. Like, they've got to find somebody that can be the centerpiece and try all over. That's the way the NBA works. Like, what were they going to do otherwise? If there was a better trade to be made, they probably would have made the better trade. And I get it. The word was that the Heat had offered a couple of first-rounders, but there's this relationship between the Suns and Beal's agent, and essentially Beal said, I won't go there. And that's the problem, is like his trade clause said he got to decide basically where he went. And all they could do is just take as much as they could probably get in the trade and then move forward. So you want to kill the Wizards, fine. I mean, they're an embarrassment as far as franchises go, but I just don't know that there was ever anything they could do about this other than just say, we'll take whatever we can get, and then to their point, they'll try to turn around and spin Chris Paul and get something out of that.
Well, I'm happy for you as a basketball fan because it is exciting when you add a player of
It
that
is.
caliber to see what it looks like.
It is.
And, for me as a Mavs fan, Beal was the guy I wanted a couple of years ago before he ultimately signed with the Wizards, and they had money to spend. And then now we have Kyrie. So
yeah, you got that.
Yeah.
And LeBron, and maybe LeBron will go there. Maybe
Look,
LeBron will.
Kyrie is one of my favorite players of all time to watch play basketball.
Really?
But he's an absolute maniac.
Oh,
yeah,
he's
I think
psychopath, yeah.
Him playing basketball, to me, is poetry in motion. It's one of the most beautiful. I think he's the best ball handler of all time.
I mean,
and the fact that he ends up on my favorite team, and I love watching him play with, now my guy Luka, and he might be the reason that Luka winds up on another team because I don't know what the hell they're going to do to better their team. They might not need much, but they need help defensively. Those two guys can score. They just can't stop anybody.
I made the argument that if I was LeBron, and I know in 2 years I'm just going to play for whatever team drafts Bronny anyway. Why not go try to win a title in Dallas next year, right? Like, you're not.
Dallas has no assets to move. Like, they're. I mean, what are they going to say? The next 10 years we'll give you all our draft picks?
I mean, but I don't know that it's going to – at some point I feel like LeBron has the type of power where he's basically just going to say, dude, it's the same deal. You're going to take what you can get. That's the way that this goes. You knew the deal when you got into business with me. I have the power. I am the NBA. So if I say I want to be somewhere, then you're going to take what you can take in order to make that move. And particularly given his relationship with Pelinka, that I don't know that Pelinka wouldn't say, yeah, I understand that. That's the cost of doing this business. I don't think there's any chance in hell, unless somehow the Lakers are the team that was able to get Lillard. I don't see any world in which the Lakers can win the title next year, whereas you go join down there in Dallas, I think you got a real chance of winning a title there.
Yeah, Bob Pelinka was so good in Parks and Rec.
He was. God, he was amazing in Parks and Rec. And it's incredible how he still looks this good at whatever he is, 54 or something like that. How old is Rob Lowe? Look that up. How old is Rob Lowe? I loved his NFL hat, by the way, that Rob Pelinka wore at the Super Bowl.
I know how old the girl was that he slept with, allegedly. But
he is 59
years ago.
59. Yeah. Rob Lowe is 59. He looks unbelievable.
He looks better at 59 than I did at 22.
Well, that's
an easy one, though. I've never
correct.
Good, so it doesn't matter.
No doubt. All right, what's coming up? What's on the show?
Rob's back tomorrow. He was off today, so he's actually traveling with the team. He's down with the watching the Orioles in that 2-game set with the Rays, so he's going to be broadcasting from actually the Trop, which will be cool tomorrow, and then all week long, the whole crew back together, busting chops and talking sports.
At Jeremy Conn, 1057 on Twitter. Of course, ConcreteLocks.com and picks every day at PressBoxOnline.com. Appreciate you, brother. Love you. We'll talk to you next Monday.
Thanks, man. I'll see you guys.
Jeremy Conn, 1057 The Fan, with us, as always, here on GCR. All right, we'll come back in. We'll get a what did we not cover today? I guess we didn't cover the U.S. Open. But
yeah, U.S. Open.
I mean, for God's sakes.
I have a tidbit on it.
You know what's funny? I actually, on Saturday, found myself not, paying attention, but I had it on in the background because the Ricky Fowler thing was just compelling enough for me. That's in the post-Tiger world, what can compel me to watch golf? Not much. But the Ricky Fowler bit was compelling, right? Here's a guy we've all known. He's, worn all these colorful, outfits over the years. He was always a bridesmaid, never the bride, right?
Max Homa didn't make the cut, so I was like, well.
Yeah, you young people care about Max Homa. I don't care about Max Homa. He's just a guy that goes on podcasts. He's not that great of a golfer.
That was my attempt to force myself to care.
I get it. If you listen to pardon my take, then you probably care about Max Homa. I understand it's not a knock.
That's not even why I care.
Well, why do you care about?
Because I know who he is, and I put
who
I
Phil
had a free bet.
Mickelson is.
I had a free bet on him.
You know who other golfers are. You're pretending like it's the only golfer that you know. There's
Hillman,
only one man on the face of the planet that plays golf that I've ever heard of.
I think like Drew or somebody mentioned that he had like the course record or something. So I was like, all right, then I'll throw my free bet on him, and then he didn't make the cut. So.
I actually had it on the second screen for a little while on Saturday, and I found myself looking like. At that point, remember Ricky Fowler going into the final hole on Saturday was up by 2 strokes.
And they were complaining about
it was dark. I mean, I could tell that it was dark. And when he, Clark made a birdie,
Wyndham Clark,
and then my cousin Rumham Clark, and then when he made a bogey because he missed a gimme putt on 18 on Saturday, and I said it to Drew when I saw him on Sunday at the Fan. I was like. Look, I was compelled by Ricky Fowler, but it's over right after that. And he was like, "Yeah, I don't think it's gonna hold up." I'm like, "Yep." So I didn't watch. Sorry, there's nothing compelling about Wyndham Clark. No one had ever heard of the man before Thursday. This is where a golf person can be like, "Yeah, it's not true." Stop.
You're
the average
right.
person
You're
had
right.
never heard of Wyndham Clark. Maybe he's gonna go on to win 15 of these things, right? Like maybe he'll prove to be the greatest golfer of all time, but. We've never heard of the man.
His best finish at a major entering this week was a T75. Tied for 7. That was his best finish at a major.
Picked a hell of a weekend. Well, he had won something before, right? Like he had won.
I don't know, some
like in
random
Charlotte
tour,
or something like
some
that,
random
right?
Tour event.
Look, I don't know what Wyndham Clark is going to be. Maybe this is the moment where it all kicks in for him. But there was nothing. Like, if all of a sudden Twitter had told me that, like, Rory McIlroy was making a move, then maybe I flip over and I pay a little more attention because Rory McIlroy is one of the few compelling figures that exists in golf. But, no, sorry. I had no interest.
Soccer on, I mean.
Well, and particularly once the soccer started. It was always going to be at best second screen for me. But once the soccer started and Wyndham Clark was going to win the U.S. Open, I just sort of said.
Oh, I meant to try out. Paramount Plus had a Pulisic cam.
I did see that they had they called it Star Cam.
Right,
is what they called it. Yeah, and apparently it was just on him the entire time. I never looked at that. I kept on the main broadcast for the soccer. Oh, thank you for reminding me that I need to unsubscribe from Paramount Plus today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
But they got Star Cam. They're
all the Gold Cup matches are on TV, right? I don't have to worry about that.
I don't want to confirm or deny that.
Right.
But I'll find out.
I'll double check that. All right. Anything else that we needed to cover from the weekend?
I think that's everything.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Congratulations to our guy Justin Armbruster. He was also among the call-ups, and he's dope. If you missed our conversation with him last week,
he enjoyed the golf this week.
He definitely was enjoying the golf this weekend. But how funny is it where he was like, "I got a question for you," and all I wanted to say back is, "I'm the wrong guy." Which kind of was what I said that because he was like,
he missed Drew by 20 minutes.
Yeah. What did he say? Like, what are you hitting off of a 300-yard par 3? What are you hitting?
14.
I was like, dude, I'm terrible at this. I'm hitting the longest club I have and hoping that it travels 70 yards. You are asking the wrong guy.
It looks like it will be Fox Sports.
Gold Cup is on FS1 Fox. So no reason at all for me to. I can bail on Paramount Plus. All right. Very good. All right, we'll come back in. We'll get a tidbit and two to wrap it up. Oh, we'll let Grant introduce himself as well, who's hanging out with us in studio today. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Dave Ginsburg remembers Goose as he looks back on the impact that late Tony Saragusa had both on and off the field here in Baltimore. Plus, he explains how Goose's kids are working to continue that legacy with the Goose Flights program. Also inside, Todd Karpovich profiles the path Tyler Wells has taken to becoming a star in the Orioles rotation. And you'll find a special summer travel guide with information about events and activities throughout the state. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The All-America Senior Game powered by New Balance will be back at Johns Hopkins Homewood Field on July 29th. The most decorated girls and boys lacrosse players in the country have been invited to play in what is the premier lacrosse event of the year. Every college coach wants their players in this game, and if you dream of being in this game, you start by trying out for one of your regional underclass teams this summer. The best against the best. Get your tickets now at allamericalacrosse.com.
Your summer destination is closer than you think at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. With an expansive gaming floor and incredible dining options ready for you to explore, your adventure awaits. Dine at the new Coho Korean Barbecue House coming in July or on the patio at the Prime Rib. Enjoy the summertime breeze at Orchid Smoking Patio. Limited time packages starting at $229. What are you waiting for? Book now. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get. So get your crab eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Conn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
All right, winding down for a Monday edition of the program. Thanks again to John Smoltz and Jeremy Conn for joining us in the last segment. This is Grant DeVivo. Grant, it's good to see you. Glad you came in to hang out with us today.
Grant. I appreciate it.
We need to get you right up on top of that microphone if you don't mind. So Grant, I have known for a couple years. Did you just graduate, or you have one more year?
Yeah,
one more year at Stevenson, where you guys know I'm the play-by-play voice, and I'm over there regularly. And I've just gotten to know Grant. You're a baseball player, but not like I don't want to. You're not on the Stevenson baseball team.
No, not quite. Not for Coach Gage, but I do play for Stevenson Club Baseball. We're coached by Zach Snyder. He's been there for the full 10 years of the program. I'll be heading into my senior season, riding in as a co-team captain, and hopefully maintaining my spot as a catcher on the team, and also considering a fifth year. So there's ample opportunities. But yeah, it's been a heck of an experience so far.
You get club athletes also got offered fifth years. That is kind of remarkable.
I was
going to take one for dodgeball.
Yeah, right. Do you know that Griffin's a national champion? National champion
in
over
dodgeball?
Dodgeball. Yeah,
yes.
dodgeball
Towson
national
University
champion.
national
Towson, all right.
Yeah. You're a baseball guy, though, like at your core.
100%.
You love baseball.
Yep.
So Grant's been trying to figure out a way to get involved with us over the years, and it's not worked out that we could do a formal internship with them, and that's quite all right. These things happen. We are always still looking for interns, although I think we got one lined up for the fall. Another Stevenson student that I'm pretty excited about, who is not really a sports fan at all, but that's how impressive he was to me that I was like, dude, your attitude, everything about it, we'll figure the other part out. We'll make that work. So he's going to be hanging out with us sporadically this summer. You are in the market for other opportunities in your life.
Yeah.
You love baseball. You'd love for those opportunities to be somehow around the baseball in
Involved
some sort
in
of
it,
way.
Yeah. I've developed myself to where it's funny because when I started playing baseball and started being around baseball, it just really wasn't like I didn't ever think it would work. You had like a socially awkward second grader with America's Pastime, and I played my first season, started watching the Orioles, and I was like, there's my life right there. So anywhere I am involved in the game, it's just moving forward. If I can be within baseball in some vicinity, I'll be a happy man the rest of my life.
Well, if you're in the world of baseball and you might have an opportunity for this young man, let me know. Or where are you on social that people could find you?
Yeah, if you guys want to find me on social media, primarily it's going to be Instagram. So 20G DeVivo, that's 20G DEVIVO is my last name. Twitter I'm not on a lot. Facebook I'm on, just Grant DeVivo. But primarily it's Instagram. You can follow me on LinkedIn as well. Some things I've done in past years. I was an Orioles intern last summer for corporate partnerships. And then, there's other ample opportunities I do with journalism and everything. So you can find me there. Reach out to me. We can talk baseball, talk some other things as well. I'm around.
So we had talked about Grant coming in every other Monday. Then, of course, the first thing I realized is that 2 Mondays from now we're not going to be here. I'm going to make a 4-day weekend out of. The fourth is a Tuesday, and I do not feel like doing the bit where you come in on Monday, then don't come in on
that stinks. So I'm going to make the executive decision that we will be taking a 4-day weekend that weekend instead of coming in on Monday and then taking off on Tuesday. So we'll figure out a day. We'll figure out when you're in here next. But we're also going to figure out you're going to be responsible for some sort of baseball-centric segment on the days that you're here. All right?
Awesome.
Like I don't know exactly what it'll be. We got to figure out what that looks like, maybe what that sounds like, all that. But on days that you're here, you'll be responsible for a baseball segment on days that you're in studio with us. All right?
All right.
Very good. Thank you, Grant. It's good to have you in
Thank you,
here. We'll look forward to hanging out with you during the summer.
I'm very excited for this. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad to have you. Let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Go there right now and get $150 in bonus bets from DraftKings after placing your first $5 bet. See this and other great sportsbook offers at PressBoxOnline.com/offers.
So as I mentioned, Wyndham Clark, he now holds that record for lowest highest finish at a major.
Lowest highest finish?
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Oh.
T75.
The worst previous best finish.
Exactly.
For a first-time major championship.
That's exactly right.
That's a mouthful, but I hear you.
Before that, it had been Louis
Oosthuizen.
Yeah, Oosthuizen.
Who Kyle and I, for whatever reason, used to call Ricky's Oyster House. I don't know where that came from.
Oyster House.
But
Louis Oyster House?
I think we were when we used to do a bit where we would pick golfers. Kyle was big on just I don't know who that guy is. Ricky's Oyster House or whatever. Or I think he called him Ricky Oosthuizen. I'm like, what? He was like, Oyster House. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, so that is the big I guess the biggest
in fairness,
tidbit
that is a throwback, and everybody knows I love Kyle. Kyle's a friend, and we miss him, and Griffin's done a fine job. But Kyle was a huge part of this ever existing because he made the commitment to join me to begin with, and we fondly think of. It's great to have Always Sunny back because one of our favorite episodes of Always Sunny was the rum ham episode. And one year for Christmas, I made Kyle a rum ham, which was great. And Josh Woodrum was a quarterback that ran around in training camp with the Ravens one year and was among the training camp darlings over the year that everybody was like, oh, Woodrum's an NFL player. He was never an NFL
Shmar Bridges, NFL player.
But yeah, thank you. But we decided to call him Josh Rumham for that because I think the episode had just aired or something like that. So when Wyndham Clark was running around yesterday, I just, for some reason, I went back to Rumham Clark. My cousin Rumham Clark.
Wyndham Hotels Clark, yes.
I don't like that as much. That's not as creative. That's just the name of a hotel. That's all it is. I want something better. I did somebody's headline was Major Win, but replaced the I with a W. I was like, that's a good headline. That's well handled. Rumham is my guy. That's my guy. My cousin Rumham. Congratulations.
Shohei Ohtani has 24 home runs now, second most by an Angels player all time through the month of June, and he's still got 10 more months to go.
And the best batting average against of any pitcher in baseball.
Yes, he also has the fourth most strikeouts as a pitcher, and it's been incredible. Anyway, he's got 10 more games left in June to try and break the Angels record, which he holds himself, 28 home runs in 2021. Shohei Ohtani. And nothing. It seems like he might break that in 4 days. So.
I hear he's good. Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to say
I don't
here.
know. It's just,
That's Shohei. Boy, dynamite analysis. Shohei Ohtani, good at baseball.
There's just something different every single day.
It's nuts. I agree.
Paul Skeens, I know.
It's interesting. We were talking about Dick Hall at the beginning of the show after he passed away. But Dick Hall, I don't know if he played. Did he play a position? Did he ever play a position in the major leagues? I know he pitched. And he played a position for a while. I'm trying to think if he ever actually played a position in the bigs. Because I want to say he was a third baseman. Oh, Dick Hall. Batting stats. I'm not coming up with him.
Yeah, I'm leaning on you here.
I'm not coming up with him.
They called him Turkey Hall.
He had to have. He because he had 100. He played in 112 games in 1954. So he definitely didn't pitch. I know they pitched a lot more in 1954 than they pitch now. But he definitely didn't. Yes, correct.
Stuck him out there in right field.
Yeah. Oh my God, he played a ton of games. He played at the beginning of his career in the 50s before he ended up coming back. As Jim talked about him going to the Mexican League, where he came back and then being a pitcher. He played 102 games in the outfield in 1954. He played a little bit in the infield. So he's one of the few guys. Adam Lowen is on this list. Guys that have done both, not at the same time.
Rick
Ankiel obviously is on the list of guys that have both pitched and played a position in Major League history. The late Dick Hall is in that group. But yes, obviously not Shohei Ohtani.
I know Glenn wasn't watching, but the College World Series was going on.
I heard it's been very compelling. Like I'm not. It's not like I'm not a College World Series fan. I told you I like
told me
college
you're trying
baseball.
to avoid it.
I never said that. I don't know why you would say that. Like, by the way, tonight there's nothing else to watch. This is the worst tubular in the history of tubulars. There is nothing of significance happening at all. Honest to God, the pandemic era had better tubulars. Like, this is bad. But
anyway, it was perfect television on Friday because Oral Roberts and TCU were playing, and right after the Orioles game ended, so that miserable Orioles game, you could switch over, and Oral Roberts was trailing, hit a 3-run homer in the top of the 9th inning.
Well, and then didn't Florida score like 5 runs on Friday night in the 9th inning or something like that?
Yes, exactly right. So it's the second time in the Men's College World Series history that the first 3 games have all been won by have been won in the team's final at bat. So
it's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
First College World Series where the first 3 games were all decided by a single run as well.
Yes, Grant?
What about the one play, I can't remember who it was, game Menon on a fly ball they lost in the lights.
Well, that was not in the World Series. That was in the
Super Regional
of
Stanford,
Texas.
Texas.
We talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
That's going to sit with them for the rest of their lives. It's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, Paul Skeens became the second pitcher in SEC history to strike out 200 batters in a season, and he is now 3 strikeouts away from setting the SEC single-season record that was set by none other than LSU's great
Ben McDonald.
Ben McDonald in 1989.
Yep. Yeah. Doesn't surprise me at all.
Nope. Blake Snell struck out all 9 starters for the second straight start over the
You
weekend.
made my relationship with the College World Series difficult because it means we don't get Ben McDonald for a little while. Like that might have something like I love you, but you're stealing away my guy, and I don't love that.
Second straight start where he struck out all the 9 starters in the lineup, Blake Snell did over the weekend. He is the 4th pitcher to ever do this since 1961. He joins
Roger Clemens.
Not Roger Clemens.
That's surprising. Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson did it twice. Once in 1992.
You can guess, Grant. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. You can just throw a guess.
I want to let you go because I already saw his list.
Well, then never mind. Nolan Ryan.
Not Nolan Ryan. Surprising.
I mean, again, I'm just guessing. Steve Carlton.
Not Steve Carlton. More modern.
Who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy?
Pedro Martinez when he got heckled by the Yankees.
Oh,
who's your daddy?
Well, don't give the answers away. Don't do that.
Pedro
I'm not
Martinez
that.
also did it twice, 99 and 2000. Lastly,
Verlander.
Not Verlander.
Scherzer.
Not Scherzer. On the right track.
Okay, if you say so. Greinke.
Not Greinke, I guess. Back towards today.
Back towards today.
Yeah, even though Greinke obviously still does pitch, but shell of what he was.
Charlie Morton.
Not Charlie Morton.
I kinda like Shane McClanahan.
Not Shane McClanahan.
Another good guess.
He's out for the year this season.
He's out for the year this season. Oh, I should know that.
Yeah.
Who's out for the year this season?
We saw he pitched against the Orioles, and then that was like his one of 3 starts all year.
Yeah, he dominated us. It was like the first week of the season.
Went head-to-head with
Grayson.
Grayson.
Why am I not remembering
Head-to-head with Grayson.
Oh, and everybody was making a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. In I know it's in Texas. It's This is when this happens at trivia. I want to murder somebody because I know I know exactly who it is, and for some reason my
long-time New York Met.
Shut up! Shut up! It actually pisses me off when you do that. DeGrom.
Yes.
Jesus
Jacob
Christ.
DeGrom struck out all 9 starters in back-to-back starts.
Hello. Man, that was.
I had another one, but we can stop there.
Plus, it's 12:24. I don't know how that happened. Tubular brought to you by your local Toyota dealer. BuyAToyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out BuyAToyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Nothing. I mean, there's random baseball.
Yeah,
Cardinals Nationals at 4 on Masson. Royals Tigers 6:40 on ESPN Plus. Diamondbacks Brewers at 8 on MLB TV. Mets Astros at 8 on MLB Network. College World Series, Stanford Tennessee at 2. Wake Forest LSU at 7 on ESPN. Some Euro qualifiers. Dude, it is a lean day. USA for WWE Monday Night Raw at 8. Anything non-sports wise that's
American
appealing?
Ninja Warrior,
Wow,
obviously,
it's
on
just a
NBC.
bad,
And then Netflix
bad
has a
night.
documentary called Take Care of Maya, which is about this 10-year-old girl named Maya. She was admitted to Johns Hopkins Hospital in the Children's Hospital in 2015.
Okay.
And apparently she had some really rare condition. The trailer was very like ominous, like it didn't like reveal a whole lot.
Okay.
But like apparently she had a rare condition. Like the parents kind of just wanted to pull her out, like so they could spend time with their daughter. But like then the state like kind of took custody of her and were like, we want to, because we want to, try to treat her. But they were telling the parents at the same time, we have no treatment because we don't know how to treat this. So
Interesting.
yes, that is on Netflix.
All right. Very good. Thanks today. Oh, by the way, congratulations to my guy Frankie Tiafoe. Won the Boss Open this weekend in Germany. His second career ATP tournament win. He officially moves into the top 10 of ATP rankings for the first time in his career, which is
how old is he now?
dope.
He's like
he's 26 now. I want to say he's not. Maybe he's 25.
Gotta get these old guys out of there.
Well, I mean, he's not. He's 25. He's 25. Congratulations to Frankie, Maryland native, now two-time ATP Tour winner, and in the top 10, which is a very, very big deal. 2 Americans in the top 10. That has not happened basically at all over the course of the last.
Who's the other
Taylor
one?
Fritz is also in the top 10. So very cool. All right. Thanks today to John Smoltz. Thanks to Jim Henneman, who joined us in studio for a great hour, and thanks to Jeremy Conn. We'll get all of it up. It was a JJJ, Triple J today.
Yeah.
We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of
We
the.
got Triple G's in here.
How about that?
Oh my God, it's so good.
Tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Anything tomorrow?
Stuff and things.
Oh no. Okay. It's not great. Thanks everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners: Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, All American Lacrosse, Baltimore Orioles, Birdland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday evening. Go nobody. Duke sucks.